Welcome to Launchpad Astronomy. I'm Christian Reddy, your friendly neighborhood astronomer, and Merry Christmas, everyone! It is so great to be with you here this morning. We're going to be launching the James Webb Space Telescope today, finally, after all this time. I don't know about you, but I'm kind of interested in what is going to transpire today. I hope you are too. So, just want to say hello to everybody. Wow, I mean, 650 of you are watching this now. This is really, really great. Thank you so much. Hey, just want to say hello to a few folks here. I saw Jan on earlier, and Sergasi's here, and a few other folks are here today. Oh, thank you, Dakash. Daksh, that's very generous of you to say that. It's very kind of you. So appreciate that so much. Anyway, we've got, and Merry Christmas to you as well. Oh my gosh. Okay, so comments are coming in fast and furious, and I could barely keep up with them. But hello, Bez. Good morning, my friend. Good to see you. I'll be doing my best today to keep you involved in this as much as I can, because I think it'd just be so much fun if we just hung out together and just celebrated this incredible day. You know, it's not just Christmas Day; it's James Webb Launch Day, and wow, just how amazing is all of that. Anyway, hey, if you are here from out of town, please let me know where you're checking in from. I'll be, I just want to hear from you. Where are you from? I see we got someone here from England. We got some from the U.S. Virgin Islands. Wow, great to see you. That's fantastic. Germany is here. Brazil is checking in. Holy moly, I can't even bring up these comments. You guys are hitting me so hard. Okay, so what can we expect for today? Pakistan is in the house. We got Mexico here. Brighton, England. Good grief. All right, I think the mic level is too hot. All right, let me see if I can't back it down a little bit. Would that help? Does that help a little bit better? Or should I bring the mic even further down? Alaska, we have Lithuania, and of course we have Mars checking in. It's so great to see all of you today. Wow, how exciting is this? Hey, if you're watching this and you're enjoying the stream, or if you'd like to let other people know about it, please feel free to share the stream, tweet it out, post it to Facebook, or whatever social media platform you prefer to use. Well, what a day. Here we are, right? Now, as I am working through this today, just to let you know what's coming up, I'm trying to do a few things here behind the scenes, and I'm not doing them very well, but we're going to have a couple of guests on today that'll be joining us throughout the morning, at least over here where we are, it's morning. And, of course, we're going to be watching the launch live. And what else can I tell you? Golly, I don't know. We're just going to have fun. We're just going to talk about Webb today and all the exciting things it could potentially teach us. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. I will do my best to get to as many questions as I can. Yeah, I've got all kinds of fun stuff happening. I gotta close out a comment here. Okay, we got Zimbabwe checking in. Wow, how cool is that? All right, let's see. Anyway, what I want to do is try to have like a nice little stream going on here. And I was actually setting this up right before. When I say stream, what I mean is I want to show you like a picture-in-picture kind of situation, so that we can just sort of keep our eyes on the launch pad and maybe even listen in a little bit to the raw feed. So while you guys are chatting, I'm just going to go ahead and just do a little bit of setup here behind the scenes. Don't mind me if you shouldn't see anything moving around, but if you do, there we go. I think we can go ahead and use this scene right here. So I'll go ahead, go back to live mode, and I'm going to bring this up right. So I'm going to try not to be muted here while I talk with you. Let's see. It is not launched. It's right there on the launch pad. You could see it right there. As a matter of fact, let's go ahead and listen in and bring you some of the beautiful sounds of the jungle from Karoo. This is just the raw feed coming from NASA's media channel. For those of you who are keen on the highest production values possible, I'll let you know that this is actually a 720 stream. I'm streaming to you in 1080. This stream that you're seeing right here, this is coming to us at 720. However, if it looks cloudy, it certainly is cloudy. It's a very overcast day, and you may even be hearing the little trickles of raindrops because it is raining in Kourou. That's actually not a showstopper for launch. They actually can launch in the rain. They're really mostly concerned with things like upper level winds and, well, lightning, you know, because that would be bad if there were lightning, right? So we've got this beautiful live feed up today, and we'll just be bringing up a few other things here and there. And like I said, as I get some guests to come on, we'll be bringing them up. So yeah, rain. Hopefully no thunderstorms. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, and okay. Well, Jan. Okay, it's raining here. According to Jan, it's raining in Pennsylvania as well. Well, there you go. I mean, you know, if it's raining in Pennsylvania, it is certainly raining in Kourou, French Guiana, right? I mean, isn't that just how this works? So, how are we doing today? Let's see. Sri Lanka is checking in. South Africa. Oh my gosh! You know, this is so great. Hey, we even have New Zealand in. Good morning or good evening, New Zealand. It's great to have you with us. All right, so what are we going to be doing? No, lightning has not happened. If it did, say someone asked me if would they delay it if lightning happened? Probably. You know, they have their own set of weather constraints, like any launch has. The weather forecast was, well, remember, this was going to launch yesterday, and then they had to push it back to today due to unfavorable weather. So it looks kind of gloomy and horrible, but it's actually probably going to be just fine for launch. Like I said, this rocket launches in the rain all the time. Rain is not the concern. Of course, you know, assuming it's not like heavy rain, it's the wind that matters the most. That's what we are the most concerned with at this point. So, let's see. I'm getting stream stopped. No, I don't think stream stopped. I think I'm right here. Which stream were you talking about? Are we talking about... No, I think we're fine. If you guys can't see me, or if I have stopped, then I know I got bigger problems. I think we're okay. Alright, still trying to get caught up here in the comments, because you guys are coming in really fast. I want to just talk with you today about... Okay, yeah, well, here is a relevant question. What time is launch happening? Launch is going to happen at 7, or the launch window opens at 7:20 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, or 11:30 Universal Coordinated Time. That's the launch window. Now there's a 30-minute launch window, or 32-minute launch window. So we've got we've got some time to kill between now and then. But this is fun, right? Oh, and Hiroshi, thank you so much. I've got a 10 euro with a pair character flying. I love how Ecamm just does these, describes these super stickers rather than, you know, display them. So, anyway. Hey, Austin, Texas. Okay, great. All right, what I'm going to try to do is, since people are... One thing this live feed does not have... that I'm pulling in from is the countdown timer. And since everybody wants to know just when it's going to launch, I'm going to switch back over to here to this shot, and then I'm going to just reset my shot a little bit. So I'm going to go to the public live feed from NASA, which is going to include that all-important countdown timer. And I think that's going to make us feel a little bit better, just knowing that that things are counting down smoothly, right? So give me a second while I go ahead and get that sorted out here. Oh man, how cool is this, folks? It is launching today. Oh my gosh, this is so cool. All right, so I'm turning off the smooth sounds of that beautiful wind and birds chirping in Kourou. And I'm going to go ahead and bring up... where is my web browser? My web browser is right here. You know, this is just the kind of morning we're having, and that's okay, because you know why? It's Christmas. It's Christmas morning. Oh my gosh, I can't believe it's Christmas Day. You know, I always enjoy Christmas, and I know not everybody celebrates Christmas. I celebrate Christmas. It's just because it's fun. It's festive. It's neato. It's Christmas. Oh man. Okay, so they're not gonna show. All right. Well, I'll bring this up here. I'll let you see what I'm seeing. Yeah, all right. You know what? Actually, I'm going to go back to that stream that we just had. Okay, that live stream. I know it doesn't have a launch countdown on it, but what they're doing on the public stream is they're showing like a lot of like other videos and people talking and stuff like that. It's a little bit distracting, and I thought it would just be kind of fun just to have this rocket up here because it's such a serene scene to have, isn't it? It's just lovely to take a look at. So I'm going to go back to my pip here, come back to you, and then we're going to return to this. Is this not a professional stream or what? I mean, this is just a complete making it up as we go along, right? Can't seem to do my own job. Okay, great. Here I am. So, can you guys hear? Yeah, you should be able to hear the rain and the wind and all that kind of stuff. Let me know if you can't hear it, but hopefully you can. Okay, we got A triple plus. I've been looking forward to this very moment. Yeah, you know what? I mean, I think a lot of people have. You know, I feel that this is really one for the books because it's, you know, it's not just, well, I mean, at the risk of getting too philosophical too early in the morning, you know, it's not just astronomers interested in this, although I certainly am, right? But it's also a question of having not just astronomers involved, not just Americans involved, but the whole world is involved, right? This is a international effort. I mean, this is a mission that is being primarily run by NASA, along with ESA and all of its participating countries, CSA, the Canadian Space Agency. This is really a moment for the world, and I think what we're about to witness today, my friends, is humanity at its best. I'd like to go ahead and bring on a very special guest who I think needs no introduction, but I'd like to introduce him anyway. I'm referring to none other than Fraser Cain, the publisher of Universe Today. Good morning, Fraser, and Merry Christmas.
Hey, Christian, how's it going? Merry Christmas to you, too.
Good, my friend. Fraser, it is extremely early where you're at. It's dark 30.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and the timing's really good. The power just came back on here. We just lost power for my whole neighborhood, and it just came back online.
Oh, okay. So people are saying they're getting clicking sounds. Sorry to interrupt you, Fraser. So I cut the system audio. So hopefully you guys can see this. Hopefully you guys can hear Fraser and I speaking a little bit better. But good morning. So you got your power. Yeah. So Fraser had the worst night, the worst Christmas Eve. Right. Tell what happened, Fraser. This is amazing.
Well, so we've just had unseasonably cold weather here on the west coast of Vancouver, of Canada. I always tell people that we live in the Florida of Canada. It's very mild. Our summers are nice. Our winters are mild. It's been just absolutely ridiculous. I'm sure people have seen. We've had incredible rainstorms. We've had all of our highways washed away. We've had heat waves. We've had wildfires, and now we're having just unseasonably cold weather and massive amounts of snow, like feet and feet of snow, and it's just been taking out our power nonstop. So I'm amazed the power is holding right now. I could very well go offline at any point. So
Right. I totally understand, and we don't want you to go offline either. I mean, that would be bad, right? But so man, I'm so glad that you could be here. I mean, despite all of the catastrophic climate change that's happening in your area, it is just so cool to have you here, man. Awesome. Let's see. Yeah. So so Fraser, I was telling everybody, and I think I may have mentioned to you as well, that this is a lot less formal of a live stream than what I would normally be able to do. This is something more like, hey, you know what? Because people are going to be kind of coming in and going out as they have an opportunity. I've got some folks joining from NASA today. I've got some folks, we may have a guest coming in from somewhere in some country in South America. We'll see. I don't know if it's going to happen or not. So it's going to be very informal, very loose. We're going to be just screwing this up left, right, and sideways together. But anyway, so Fraser, I don't know if you have any time on the James Webb Space Telescope for your own observations. Maybe I
No.
don't know if you survived the Cycle 1 call for proposals or not. But so why are you excited about this? I mean, it seems like you kind of seem to act like this is a bit of a big deal. Why are you excited about James Webb launching?
Well, I mean, this is the most complicated, expensive telescope that humanity has ever created. I'm not sure the cost of the Large Hadron Collider, but it could very well be the most expensive, most elaborate scientific experiment that's ever been conducted by humanity. We are
Yeah.
20 years late. Like, this was supposed to go up maybe 15 years ago, and for about maybe $8-9 billion less than the cost. So it is a long time coming, and it has been, people describe it as like the black hole that ate astronomy. For the last almost 2 decades now, this telescope has been gobbling up the attention and the budget of the whole astronomy community for what comes next after the Hubble Space Telescope. And so, I mean, we've been waiting for so long. And for a lot of people, maybe they're just showing up late to the party and they're just finding out about this incredible telescope. But for many of us, we have been watching with excruciating experience every single delay, every single change, every single time that the timeline is pushed back. And this is it. This is the day. I haven't even checked the weather forecast. How does it look?
So far, weather is looking green for launch, even though it is, I mean, it is raining right now, and part of me was I try to bring us back here. I definitely haven't set up my stream quite right yet, but here we are, we're back. So we are looking good right now for launch. Weather, it's raining in Kourou, as has pretty much been the case all week long. However, rain is not in and of itself a red condition for launch. They can launch, and they have launched in the rain, and so they probably will. Right now, what they're paying attention to are all the high-level winds and the lightning, and all of that is checking in green as well. So,
Yeah.
I don't want to
People are
jinx it.
asking to turn up my volume. Can you turn up my volume?
I've got your volume cranked. You're at max, my friend.
Yeah, I'm at max from what I can fire out to you as well. Maybe there's some way in the settings of the software.
Okay, so I've got so Steve, let's see. I've got Fraser up all the way. Let me do a little bit more troubleshooting here. And like I said, this is all very much I
could always just get closer and closer to the microphone.
Well, that's always a good idea. Yeah, I think we're just gonna have to be like broadcast types today,
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, or I as the host, I'm too loud. Okay, all right, I'll back myself down a little bit here.
Yeah, you can turn yourself down a bit, and then people can just balance out the audio.
Okay.
I love the fact that I don't have to do any of this engineering. I can just sit here.
I
As a
know.
guest,
I know.
my hands in the air.
I know, and I'm going like.
Yeah, exactly, and just let you go through all of the misery. So this is perfect.
And folks, I mean, I don't think anybody here needs to be reminded of this, but Fraser does this every week. Every Monday night, he's live on his channel, and he's got a guest on, and he's running behind the scenes. So I know that he's just laughing at me. What?
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. So, all right. So it sounds like we got our audios okay. Good, bigger and better things as we are fixed. Wonderful. Sounds okay. Yeah. Thank you so much, everybody. All right. So,
So a comment there, Brian Brewster is saying, why don't you announcers shut up? Don't ever fill every second of the airwaves with your worthless banter. So we're re-hosting a live stream from the European Space Agency and also from NASA. So you can go to the raw feed and just have it just a quiet, contemplative examination of a rocket taking off if you want. Yeah. We're here to provide additional information, answer questions, and keep you company as we all stress out together about this launch. So yeah, I'm sure you can just do a Google search for James Webb launch, and you're laughing.
It's Christmas, We're just having Christmas morning. I hope everybody's got their hot chocolate. I hope everyone's got their tea and their cookies and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, so let's see, we've got Do we have trolls in the house? Of course we do. There's always trolls. But you know what? Screw these people. If they're gonna be trolls on Christmas, then
Yeah.
I don't know why they're even here. So yeah, so Fraser, you've been covering this mission for
20, 15, 20 years.
15 to
Yeah.
20 years. Yeah. So perhaps you could walk us through. I mean, I don't want to like turn it into a kvetch session, but what is
Hmm.
the what do you think was one of the reasons why it took this long to
Yeah.
happen?
Yeah. The biggest thing is that when, so, okay. All right. A whole bunch of steps to go back. All right. So the astronomical community
Hmm.
for the United States has this thing called the Decadal Survey. And this comes out every 10 years. And it's sort of a big series of meetings, documents that all the astronomers come together and they post their wish list for what they want. And James Webb was the conclusion that the astronomical community had made, was that they needed a way to go beyond Hubble. They needed a way to push out their view of the universe right out to the very edge of the observable universe to see the first events that were starting to unfold. And these are essentially the first large scale structures, galaxies coming together, because right now there's just no way for astronomers to be able to see this. So they said, this is the thing we want to see. We also want to be able to see new planets forming. We want to be able to sense the atmospheres of planets, maybe to search for some evidence of life. We want to be able to see stars forming at the hearts of nebulae. And as they sort of crunched all these requirements down, they said, what we're going to need is a infrared telescope, 6.5 meters large, that is going to be cooled down almost to the background temperature of space, capable of seeing these distant objects. And the problem with that was a 6.5 meter telescope does not fit well inside a 5 meter launch fairing. Not to mention all the technology required to be able to keep it cold and all of the sensitivity. And so they had to come up with really clever ideas to be able to make this all work. One is the amount of folding, the origami that's going on to make this telescope function. The other thing is the sunshade, the ability to keep this telescope cool, but without needing constant amounts of additional coolant, just to essentially allow the universe to cool this telescope down to the temperature that it needs to be. And so they injected a lot of technical uncertainty into the process. There was a lot of things that had just never been done before in this situation. And obviously, going back in hindsight, I'm sure a lot of the technical managers would be like, man, I wish we hadn't decided to go down that path. They had to come up with solutions, and each time they ran across this technical uncertainty, it increased the budget, it delayed the time. And yet, the sort of the sunk cost fallacy, the more expensive, the more complicated, the more money you've put into this thing, the more careful you have to be, and the more that slows things down, and you're double checking, and you're unfolding the entire thing with its hundreds of actuators, and then folding it back up, and then folding it back out again, and then you're doing it in a vacuum chamber, and every
Hmm.
time there's a problem or an issue, then that delays things.
Yeah.
And so I would say, if you go right back to it, it's really, they put too many challenges into this one telescope. And I think a lesson that's been learned, and you see this now with a lot of
Sure.
other missions, is they're simpler. They don't try to solve as many problems at once.
Right.
They're sort of more single purpose missions. But this is the legacy of James Webb, and here we are now on launch day,
On
when
launch day.
hopefully the thing will go up and make it happen.
But at the same time, I think that there's it was you're right. They definitely threw the long ball here, or they're throwing the long ball here, right? In terms with the technical challenges, how difficult this was to put together. So much technology had to be invented on the fly, maybe not on the fly, but as they were developing it. And in a perfect world, what they would do is they would have already developed the technology, be like, yeah, sure, no problem. Let's assemble the telescope with these parts, and off we go. And you
Yeah.
can't do that with Webb. So I think that part of the challenge that we're faced with here is that we have a guest checking in. Let me just make sure I've got somebody here. So I want to bring on a guest who is actually joining us from French Guiana. And as I'm talking here, I'm going to go ahead and just sort of set up this thing here. But basically, as I was saying, is we've got a telescope that has these very demanding science requirements. Okay, and that's the key thing, right? It's all driven. It's all about the science that it has to be able to meet. So I'm going to go ahead and get our guest lined up here,
Sure.
so that I want to introduce you now to somebody who has been such a great source of information, and just giving me some updates from kind of behind the scenes. I hope I'm not getting him in trouble when I introduce him, but he's very generously agreed to be with us this morning. I'd like to welcome NASA engineer, one of the engineers on. Once I can get my thing to work here.
If you want, there's a couple of questions there that I can tackle while you're.
You know what? We're just gonna hit right to it. We're going.
Okay. Oh,
Would it be helpful if I turned on my?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Your audio would be helpful.
Neil, I think having my audio on was the reason why you didn't hear me.
How you doing, Christian? Yeah, I couldn't hear you for a moment there, but I can hear you.
I was just saying, Neil's
cell phone reception.
Okay, Neil has been in Kourou, French Guiana, friends, since October. He actually sailed with Webb through the Panama Canal, and wow. He's been working on Webb, getting it ready for this moment. I can't believe how fortunate we are to have Neil joining us. Good morning, man. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Good morning.
Neil, how you doing down there? What's the vibe like right now?
I'm doing really well. The vibe's pretty good. Unfortunately, we got a lot of rain, as we have here in French Guiana. So we're kind of at a beach location that's a really great viewing area. And there's a few people huddled under an awning here with me.
Oh, so you're oh, I see. So you are kind of somewhat outside. Yeah, that is really, really cool. Yeah, I agree with you. Oh, this is really cool. So Neil, do you want to just maybe tell us a little about some of the work that you've been doing in your role in James Webb? I mean, you've had a not so small role at all. Tell us what you've been doing with Webb.
So I'm a mechanical engineer with NASA, and I've been in charge of the transportation logistics for JWST. So I basically have been moving the telescope, different components of it around as it's being built, and then ultimately the biggest move that we had was to move the observatory from California to the launch site here. I was also working on a lot of logistics at the launch site, unpacking a lot of the equipment, setting up the clean rooms. There was some early planning in the processing of the observatory that I was involved in, and then of course moving it from one location to the other at the launch site itself.
Wow, so you've been really busy getting this ready. What was this like? What was it like for you, just knowing that it's there on the pad, it's not coming back? How does that feel? Just knowing that you've made it to this point.
It feels great. It really does. You know, I mean, it's a little bit bittersweet because we're so in love with the observatory. We love seeing it. We love working on it. But it's been an absolute wonderful experience being here at the launch site, working with the personnel here, and finally seeing it come together and culminate to this point here where it's about to launch. Getting it into the rocket and on the fairing, or on the rocket and in the fairing, it was actually somewhat of a relief. It was just like our part of it was done, and now it was kind of just it's safe and it's in its location, and now it's ready to go.
Sorry, Neil, I was muted. That is so exciting. I have yet I had like so many questions to ask you, and I know we don't have a whole lot of time because hey, we are now at T minus 20 minutes from launch, which is a great problem to have. But what I wanted to ask was, you gave me a little bit of the information about this about some of the setback. I don't want to call it a setback, but just the anomaly with the clamp band. Do you want to maybe talk a little bit about what that was like when we had that little problem back in November, and just what everyone's reaction was to that problem?
Yeah, it was. Sorry, there's some helicopters flying overhead, putting on quite a show here.
That's
Uh,
okay.
it, it was definitely a bit of a roller coaster during that time. There was a lot going on. We were in the midst of processing the observatory, and of course, you had some of these issues that had occurred. Um, Really, what it does is it kind of throws the whole schedule of what you're about to do into a bit of a whirlwind. I mean, the processing and overall JWST, even before we had arrived here, the schedule is it's really tight, and people are
Hmm.
working on it 24/7. I mean, all the time. So everyone's on deck to do their next part, their next operation. You're prepping and everything, and that's kind of the hard part. And it's trying to decide what to do next, whether it's safe to proceed to the next operation. Uh, but you know, they really have a formal review board, and they have methods in order to determine what to do. And they ultimately did the right thing. They had their testing and their checks, and they did everything they could to make sure that the observatory is ready to launch.
Of course, of course. So, Fraser, if you have any questions for Neil, please feel free to ask. And if anybody else has questions for Neil, please feel free to ask. Because how often do you get to
Well,
actually talk to an engineer who helped build
yeah, exactly. Well,
help
I
build
know
Webb?
the weather has been very temperamental, and that's been the biggest issue now. How does it look right now with us being what 20 minutes away?
Yeah, I was kind of wondering the same thing. So I asked engineer that works here as well, and she said that no, they launch in the rain. So I'm watching people; they're kind of all moving towards the beach area onto the rocks, and I think they'll continue to go even with the rain. And so the rain's
Wow.
quite common here. They don't have much lightning.
Okay.
Really, the winds are the main concern that they have here.
So bigger and better things is asking, how did they have an extra backup clamp? Why? I thought it was funny how, if I remember correctly, the backup clamp was I don't want to say found, but it was located in the fueling depot on the floor in its box. Is that right?
Well, it was most likely there intentionally. It wasn't
Oh, okay.
a coincidence or anything like that. I'm sure they brought it as a precautionary measure that it had been there. It had been pre-qualified and tested, and then they just had to go through the determination whether to use the spare or to refurbish the one that had the anomaly.
Gotcha. Okay. So it wasn't like a oh look, what do you know, there just happens to be a clamp band over here. It was part of a contingency plan, I guess, right?
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Just for some of us on the floor, it was surprising to see it when we went into the fueling hall. We just noticed it on the, kind of sitting on the ground there, but it was intentionally there.
About how far away are you now from the launch site, Neil?
So I think it's approximately, I would say, like 4 miles away.
Hmm.
And the launch pad itself, I think, goes out on a bit of a peninsula. So the view from here is supposed to be pretty direct over the water to the pad itself.
Can you actually see the pad from where you're standing? I'm not. I mean, if you can, I don't expect you to be able to show it to us with all the cloud. But are you able to actually make out the stack out there?
I don't know. I haven't walked out quite far enough, but I believe you can. I believe there's might be some trees in the way to see it directly,
Yeah.
and then it kind of pops up as a launch occurs.
I mean, I imagine you'll notice it when it clears the tower and stuff, right? You'll probably see
Oh
a
yeah, yeah.
great
We'll
big
see
orange
it. We'll see
flamey
it.
thing
We'll
going
hear it.
up. Yeah. you'll
Yeah.
you'll see, hear it, and you'll feel it too, won't you? I mean, it's
Yep.
probably gonna shake the ground. That's exciting. So Neil, I know that you had put in, and you and all of your teammates down there had just put in just countless hours. It seems like it was round the clock, nights, weekends, at points. Uh, did you ever? I don't want to say lose faith, but did you ever think, oh man, this is we're going to be going back to square one or even to square 18? How did you ever feel this was going to be just one snag after another, or what? Like when problems arose, how did you just approach it?
It is a little bit difficult to maintain the positive energy at times, but there's so much to do. There's so much work to do that you kind of just take it one step at a time. And it wasn't the first time that there was an anomaly. There's often setbacks. That's when you're doing stuff for the first time, that's kind of the issue that you have. You can plan as much as you can, but you really don't know what you don't know until you get there. So yeah, but there's a really really strong team here, and great managers, and there's leadership, and there's a lot of people that work really hard to continue the overall processing and get it to where it's at.
Absolutely. And Neil, I think bigger and better things here. He says he looks so calm. Wows. I think that is absolutely perfect. A way to describe you. You know, hopefully, let me just make sure you guys aren't hearing the noise coming through the launch center over here, are you? No? Okay, I guess not. The reason I ask is because I'm getting it in my ear, so I'm trying to talk while hearing all this stuff. Just want to say, though, Neil, that you encounter these problems, and I think for all of us out here, we're all in like the cheap seats, and we're watching this, and we're thinking, oh my gosh, this isn't going to work, this is going to be a disaster or whatever. And yet you're down there, you're like one of the few people who could actually take action to make this work. Hats off to you, man. That is fantastic. You just like I think you just like played it calm, cool, and just did your best impression of a steely-eyed missile man while you're down there.
Well, I'm just a really small member in a very big team and every person is real important. They all have their role. So there was a lot of other people that really had the hard task of doing some operations and procedures and overall working on the observatory when it's here, making some big decisions. But right now, while it went into the fairing, after that, I really was hands off at that point.
Mm-hmm. How did it feel just to know that you had taken your last look at the Webb telescope, that you were among the final human beings you were among the last living creatures on this planet to see Webb? How did that moment feel?
It's pretty incredible. I mean, the observatory itself is a showcase in itself. It's just beautiful to look at. There's some other observatories that are kind of covered, and you can't really see what the working parts are, but the mirrors are just so gorgeous. Just to see them every time you walk into a clean room, you kind of are in awe when you see it, even if you work on it every day. But overall, it was really a privilege and an honor to be able to work on it towards the end here and to see it when it was on the fairing. And I had the pleasure of being able to go out to the launch pad yesterday, and that itself was quite. I was just tickled by it. It was really surprising that I had that opportunity, and I was able to get up close to it, and I just kind of took it all in, thought about all the hard work, thought about all the people that had put so much of their livelihood into this observatory, all the all the countries that have worked on it, and of course I thought about my family and all the other families that have kind of been along for the ride, for the people that have dedicated themselves to this project.
Well, that's amazing work, and I think all of us here are just so grateful to you and to all the thousands, tens of thousands of people who've worked on this. I mean, entire careers has been put onto this, has been built into this machine that we're about to launch in just Well, in just about 10 minutes. So that's got to be really exciting. And Neil,
Just about 10 minutes.
yeah, and so Neil, if you need to go or want to get going to get your view lined up, feel free. Don't feel like you're obligated to hang out here with us, but we're delighted to have you. This is just so cool to talk to you, man. So Fraser, I think we have a couple of questions that are coming through. Or does anybody have any questions for Neil before we let him head off to the launch site? If not, we'll just hang out and chat, and then guys who worked on this, you are the guys. All right, here we go. Dynamite Biscuit says, guys who worked on this, you are the smartest rock star type people in the world. I agree. I think there's some pretty clever folks, right? And we've got all systems are green, which is always great to have. So.
Yeah, so Neil, I have one last question for you, which is that, I mean, assuming the worst does happen and the weather, I guess that's not the worst that could happen, but if the weather does pick up and we do get some high winds, when would your next window be? Would it be same time tomorrow, or do you know?
Yeah, I believe there's another window tomorrow, and then there does come a point where the windows die off and we have to go into January. But I have a lot of confidence that they're going to be ready to go here, and Mother Nature's going to be in our favor. So we'll wait to see in the next 8 minutes here. So we're getting close, and I just wanted to say that it's been a pleasure to be on the show here and to talk to you. And I'm really looking forward to the launch, and I think we'll be able to catch up very soon here.
Good. I hope so. I would love to have you on, Neil, and just hang out and chat with you some more, and maybe you can share some photos and stuff like that with us of what it was like behind the scenes. But Neil Patel, thank you very much for joining us. Appreciate all you've done. Thank you for keeping me in the loop as well, and just thank you for all you're doing to bring us this beautiful observatory. Have a great day, Neil. Have a great launch, and Merry Christmas, sir.
Enjoy the
All right,
launch.
Merry Christmas. Thank you. Have a good one.
Take care. Well, how cool is that? How cool!
Yeah, have you seen a rocket launch? Have you ever been to a launch?
I've been to 3 of them.
Okay.
I saw STS-135. Thank you so much for the super chats. We had a couple super chats come in. I just want to thank you all very much for those. We did have we did see the STS-135, the final shuttle mission, which was incredible to see. I mean, just absolutely, shakes the ground. Then I got to see 2 other rocket launches. How about yourself?
Yeah, I saw Osiris Rex launch. And,
oh wow!
So that was out at Cape Canaveral. Yeah, and it was great. That was the first. I went to go see. I think I was at 1:30. I was at the second to last space shuttle launch, but it was delayed for a month, so I wasn't able to see that. But I was able to watch Osiris Rex launch, and it was fantastic. I highly recommend watching a rocket launch.
It is cool to get. Yeah, I agree. When you get
Nothing
to see
this big though.
Yeah.
This is a big rocket.
So I'm going to go ahead and bring up the audio here because I think they're doing some. Let's see.
3 seconds before the H0, the inertial platform that will give all the information about where it is to the launch.
Once the launcher will be released, qui communique toutes les informations au lanceur sera libéré et vous verrez qu'il H0, les 7 secondes qui sont nécessaires pour l'allumage du moteur vont démarrer.
Once the computer
Et donc,
check that
une
the
fois
Vulcan
que
engine is
l'ordinateur
running normally,
de bord a
and you will see at that point the
vérifié
flame going stable
le bon
at the outlet of
fonctionnement
the
du
nozzle,
moteur,
and at that point,
le
your board
message,
computer
la
will
commande
ignite
sera
the two
donnée,
boosters that will
les
enable to move the
boosters seront
770 tons
et
of
donc
Ariane and Webb.
Ariane sera
Coming up on the T-minus 4-minute mark right now. Just a couple of milestones real quick. At the 1 minute 5 second mark into the flight, Ariane 5 will go through the period of maximum dynamic pressure. Max Q, as it's known. That will be the period of maximum aerodynamic forces on the rocket itself. The solid rocket boosters, which will provide about 90% of the initial thrust off the launch pad, will shut down and separate at the 2 minute 21 second mark into the flight, followed a minute and 5 seconds after that by fairing jettison. That will expose the James Webb Space Telescope to the environment of flight for the first time. The main stage separation or the first stage separation comes at the T-minus at the 8 minute 47 second mark into the flight, and that will be about a 16-minute burn of that upper stage engine. It will cut off at about 24 minutes 51 seconds into the flight, and then we'll go into a coast phase of about 2.5 minutes to allow any oscillations to dampen out, provide the most pristine environment for the James Webb Telescope before observatory separation. We're coming up on the 2 minute 50 second mark into the flight. Again, you're going to be hearing critical calls down the stretch here from the DDO, or the Range Operations Manager, Jean-Luc Voyer. The weather is go. We have a green board. No issues being worked. NASA officials, including Greg Robinson on the right, carefully watching the telemetry, looking intently at the final couple of minutes of the countdown. Lives have been spent in the preparation of the James Webb Space Telescope that is about to fly.
James Webb avant qu'il décolle.
Et Béatrice Romero est à ses côtés. Béatrice Romero d'Ariane Espace.
And that is the DDO, the Range Operations Manager, Jean-Luc Voyer, as we have hit the 2 minute mark in the countdown.
Nous a annoncé les 2 minutes avant le lancement.
Okay, that's good. All right, we are at T-minus 2 minutes. Good morning, and I'd like to welcome our latest guest, Dr. Patty Boyd of NASA Goddard Space Flight Center. Patty is a expert on exoplanets and one of the astronomers on the James Webb Space Telescope. Good morning, Patty, and Merry Christmas.
Hi, good morning, Chris. Merry Christmas to you.
Oh, it's so great to have you with us. Yeah, and thank you so much for taking part of your Christmas morning with us. You're joined with myself and Fraser Cain and about 3,600 other wonderful, beautiful human beings watching with us right now. So how you doing, Patty? How you feeling?
Very, very excited. Really can't wait to see this happen. You know, it's been such a long, amazing road to get here, and it's just amazing to imagine that we're here.
All right.
Less than a minute.
Less than a minute. We are, I tell you what we'll do. Let's go ahead and listen in and just enjoy this together, and we'll pick up our conversation afterward.
Great.
Rocket boosters, the James Webb Space Telescope will be on its way.
Le télescope s'élancera dans le ciel.
T-minus 30 seconds in count.
30 secondes avant le lancement.
Standing by for terminal count.
On attend le tout dernier compte à rebours.
À tous de DDO, attention pour les deux comptes finales. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, unité, top. Allumage Vulcain.
Donc, mise à feu du moteur.
Allumage UAP, décollage.
Decollage, liftoff from a tropical
Decollage.
rainforest to the edge of time itself. James Webb begins a voyage back to the birth of the universe.
Holy moly.
Punching a hole through the clouds, 20 seconds into the flight, good pitch program reported.
Trajectoire est nominale.
I don't know, guys. I'm trying real
Vehicle
hard.
Performance is nominal.
Les performances sont nominales.
Trying real hard to be a steely-eyed missile man right here, but man, oh man.
The Ariane 5 rocket continues
continue
to fly uphill in nominal fashion.
de façon tout à fait nominale.
The rumble of the powerful
La
Ariane
propulsion
5
est
now
nominale.
being felt here in the control center.
Assourdissant de ce décollage
3D
qui
animation.
atteint le centre Jupiter maintenant avec un petit décalage. On voit la
Nous entendons le bruit et nous
It goes through
sentons
the
les
clouds so
13
quickly. Now
kilometers in
they have to
altitude,
switch to
7
the
kilometers
simulation.
downrange.
Yeah, because of the overcast. Yeah,
à une
Yeah.
vitesse
0.6 kilometers
that's the only
per
bummer
second.
about launching right now. But
Tous les
you
paramètres à
know,
bord sont normaux.
it's a small price to pay.
5 km par seconde.
Look at that, right on the green line. We're going uphill,
Jean-Luc Voyer, the
going
range
exact. So the green line
operations
represents where they want to go, and the yellow line is where they're at. They're right on track. This is a fantastic, very nominal launch, and we love the word nominal when it comes to launching. This is great stuff.
Suit exactement la
1 minute 41
prévision de
seconds
vol
into the
qui est la
flight,
courbe
about 40
envers.
seconds away from
Pilotage est calme.
shutdown of the solid rocket
Il nous reste
boosters.
40 secondes avant la séparation.
So that's the first
des,
big issue is going to be the detaching of the solid rocket booster.
Coming up on
So
the
Right.
2-minute mark into the flight.
qui se
So that should be any moment now.
à
Nice and
2
smooth.
minutes 21.
Yeah, the ride does smooth out quite a bit. Right now, Webb's probably being rattled as hard as it's going to be.
Lorsqu'il détecte
Less acceleration.
Tous les paramètres à bord sont normaux.
il y aura une accélération
Everything is
moindre,
okay. Everything is normal.
et tout se
2
passe
minutes 15
bien,
seconds into the
tout est
flight.
normal.
When the computer detects this threshold,
Minutes,
it will
There it
separate.
goes.
Yeah.
Yay!
All right.
Yes!
Solid rocket booster separation from Jean-Luc Voyer.
I love it.
Coming at an altitude of 44 miles. The Ariane 5 and James Webb traveling almost 5,000 miles an hour.
So the next thing is we're going to be
We
seeing
have about
the
1 minute 5
first stage
seconds to go
detach.
before
We're going to
Yeah.
switch to the upper
That'll
stage.
be the next critical milestone.
The fairing. And actually,
Right.
the fairing is an issue that the Ariane had.
Yeah, and so the fairing's coming off first, and then the core stage will shut down after that. So,
Élevé au flux d'air élevé. Et dès que
and yeah, you're right.
l'atmosphère
Were an issue.
That fairing was a problem. Looks like they resolved it.
Launches.
And we could talk about why the fairing.
For the performance of the launch, we are going to eject this no more useful fairing.
No more useful fairing.
And let's go down to the floor in the Jupiter Control Center to Raphael Chevrier of Arianespace. Raphael, so far so good.
Hi, Rob. So far, so good. Everything.
Yeah!
All
right.
Right.
Ooh, that was critical.
Great.
Langage de la coiffe.
Yeah.
We had the confirmation of
Nous avons
the
confirmation
separation of the
de
two
la séparation
sequences
des
and now of the
propulseurs
fairing,
d'appoint
meaning that we have
et
crossed
de
the
la
limits of the
quoi, ça veut dire
atmosphere.
qu'on a
So everything is
franchi
going
Tous les paramètres à bord sont normaux.
tout se
and
passe
the DDO just said that all
mieux.
parameters are
Et
going
les paramètres sont
perfectly
Okay, view from inside the second stage.
dans cette
And
mission.
Raphael, this is a
fantastic. I
view.
didn't realize
This is our last look at Webb, my friends.
Called the Vicky Cam, looking back at the James Webb Space Telescope. This is on about a 20-second delay or so because the way the imagery is processed here in the control room. There's your telescope ready to unfurl its wings basically and begin its journey to the Lagrange point, the L2 point, about 1 million miles away from Earth.
1,5 million de kilomètres de la Terre, de notre
It's great that they do have a camera on board James Webb just to look at James Webb.
Yeah, well, the camera's actually inside on the second stage, so Webb doesn't carry any self-viewing camera, so to speak. But yeah, so we should see Webb separate.
Here in the Mission Control Center at 12:20 Greenwich Mean Time, 9:20 a.m. Peru time, 7:20 a.m. Eastern time.
À Kourou et 7h20 à l'heure de Washington.
The Ariane 5 and James Webb, 181 kilometers in altitude, 450 kilometers downrange from the launch site here in Kourou.
Kilomètres d'altitude déjà.
Yeah, it's in the mesosphere. Yeah, it's effectively in space.
Contrôle du vol est
5 minutes, 12 seconds into the flight. We have about
those are
3.5
minutes that went very fast, huh?
In main stage or first stage performance.
That was at once the longest
again,
5 minutes and the fastest 5
screen,
minutes.
The
you know,
yellow plot line overlaid over the green line, meaning we are right on course, right down the pike, and a perfect trajectory so far for the Ariane 5 rocket.
Go Ariane.
Oh yeah, go go go! I just love this thing.
All telemetry data are now
Toutes
received
les
by
données
the Galileo
télémétriques
tracking
sont
station,
actuellement reçues
which is
par
close
la
to here,
station
where
de
we are
poursuite Galileo, près
in Kourou.
d'ici, où nous nous trouvons à Kourou.
It will track
Cette
the
station
launcher
va suivre
ignition
le lanceur
of its upper
jusqu'à
stage.
la propulsion est nominale.
And then we'll
It's a cool animation. I like how they're just sort of letting the camera, you know, they're bringing the camera behind it like that. That's cool.
on the map in the middle of the ocean,
au milieu
and
de
the two
l'océan
last
Atlantique
stations
et
in
les
Africa.
deux dernières stations en
Libreville and
Afrique.
Malindi,
Yeah,
one
but
on
Vax,
the
you're here
east
with
coast,
us.
the other one on the
Malindi,
west coast, and the one on the west coast, Malindi, you can see
sur
that
la
the
côte
satellite will be, the
orientale,
telescope will be separated
Libreville
more
est sur la côte
or
orientale.
less over
Only,
this Malindi
they've
station.
only gotten that far. It's so amazing. Like, oh wow, they've only gotten that far, huh?
Et cette station va également recevoir des
Long way to go.
Yeah.
They are
Another
telescoped
million miles.
Et donc,
the data, and it was confirmed
ces
right now
stations
by the
doivent
launch
recevoir des données
operations
et
manager.
Acquisition de
GDO vient
télémesures
confirmer
par la
que ces
station du
données ont
Natal
bien
au
été
Brésil.
reçues. Les premières données
Just
depuis le
confirming
lanceur.
now that telemetry is being processed through the Brazilian tracking station. The telescope is also processing telemetry through the tracking and data relay satellite system.
Good.
As it
We want
moves
telemetry.
further out into deep space.
We want all the telemetry.
All of the telescope's telemetry and its imagery ultimately will be processed through the Deep Space Network in Goldstone, California.
Yes, it is,
Just a
Mariana.
7-minute mark into
This
the flight.
animation is
A
actually
perfect ride,
being
so far
driven
on the
by the
Ariane 5.
telemetry. In other words, the telemetry is telling the animation what to show next.
1.5 minutes to go in the first stage performance. Once the main stage engine is commanded to cut off, it will be jettisoned, and just a few seconds after that, the upper stage engine will ignite, and it will be the workhorse for a 16-minute burn that will put James Webb into its preliminary orbit.
16 minutes pour mettre le James Webb sur son orbite de transfert.
Thank you, Trixia. Appreciate it. Oh boy.
About 11 minutes from now, telescope controllers at the Space Telescope Science Institute will be sending commands to prepare James Webb for the initial series of commissioning activities that will lead to the deployment of its solar array and the initiation of generation of electrical power for the telescope.
Yeah, they're going to have their work cut out for them, I tell you.
About 30 seconds away from main engine cutoff.
They're ready.
Oh yeah, they got this. They know what they're doing.
La trajectoire est normale.
Nominal trajectory continues to be the watchword for the day from the range
Notice it's actually got a slight downward drift at this point.
Nous être répété par le
stand by
DDO
for main engine
Jean-Luc
shutdown and
et
separation.
nous nous approchons donc l'extinction du Vulcain 2 et
They've
sa
got to aim for the
séparation.
Lagrange point.
Right, yeah, exactly. They gotta... So they're basically... There it goes! Yes! All right, ignition. Beautiful.
Opération EPC.
And we have
And
main
now
stage
it starts
shutdown
to
and separation confirmed
extension
here in the
pivot.
Mission Control
L'étage
Center,
principal
and the ignition of that
et,
upper
Allumage
stage.
ESC.
And
séparation.
Raphaël Chevrier
Donc,
down in the
Raphaël
fishbowl.
Chevrier dans le
So far, so
fishbowl.
good.
Qu'est-ce que
Yes,
vous
it's
avez
based on real
là-dessus?
telemetry, Ali.
Nous avons eu confirmation effectivement de
La trajectoire est
séparation
nominale.
de l'étage principal et l'allumage de l'étage supérieur. C'est absolument nominal. La trajectoire est nominale et c'est vrai que c'est un critique la mise à feu de l'espace, de l'étage cryogénique en plein espace. Et nous sommes maintenant à 230 km d'altitude. La vitesse est à peu près 7 secondes par 7 km par seconde. Et nous abordons la deuxième phase du vol désormais. Le pilotage va rester en propulsion pendant environ 16 minutes pour mettre James Webb sur orbite. Et là encore, tout est nominal, comme vient de l'annoncer le DDO.
So orbital
And a short time from
velocity, you want
now,
about
the
7,500 kilometers, but
maneuver
8 kilometers a second.
like
So
rocking a
Right.
baby in a cradle. This will be
once they can get into that range,
Protéger le James
then they're on their way.
Webb du surchauffe. Effectivement,
Thank you, Jocelino. Appreciate it, man.
dans un berceau. Ici, on voit Webb arrimer en haut du lanceur Ariane 5 dans une configuration spatiale. Ce sera différent pendant sa durée de vie, mais là, pour l'instant,
Tous les paramètres à bord sont normaux.
replié.
La propulsion est
Thanks,
nominale.
Appreciate it.
Un grand nombre d'études approfondies ont été réalisées par les équipes missions en Europe et en LSA sur la manière de protéger le télescope et comment les rayons du Soleil pourraient se propager et interagir avec ces instruments si délicats à l'intérieur du télescope. Et comme vous comprenez, c'est vraiment clé de faire ces manœuvres pour protéger ces instruments. Voilà pourquoi on va faire cette manœuvre en roulis. Une manœuvre spéciale a été conçue.
La propulsion est nominale.
Vous voyez sur cette animation que l'étage supérieur va tourner à 30 degrés d'un côté et va revenir à 20 degrés. Il fait ce petit mouvement tout en douceur, un petit va-et-vient pour protéger le télescope du
worthwhile
Soleil.
noting that after
Les paramètres à bord sont normaux.
from the upper stage of the Ariane 5 rocket, which continues to perform in
No, that's the NASA feed. They're carrying both languages.
The telescope controllers will be taking the baton, if you will, from the mission controllers here in Peru. The first steps will be the opening of fuel valves, a pair of fuel valves, to start flowing fuel to Webb's onboard thrusters. They then will power on the valve drive electronics. Those are powered on in preparation to control and fire those thrusters when required. Webb's solar array is scheduled to be deployed at approximately the 33-minute mark of the flight. Once it is locked in place, we'll get the call that electricity is flowing through the array. That call will come from the mission operations manager, Carl Starr, who's at the Space Telescope Science Institute at Johns Hopkins in Baltimore. Seated right behind him in that control room is Alicia Starr, a pair of stars helping to guide James Webb on its discovery of the stars. Alicia Starr is the lead engineer for launch and ascent events.
Mission de la télévision pour la station d'ascension.
Then 3 out of the 4 hold-downs for the aft-deployed radiator will be released to prevent binding due to the cool-down of the telescope's composite structure. The contamination control heaters will be enabled to protect instrument optics on Webb from any water-ice condensation as they cool down. The actuator drive unit will be powered on. This particular mechanism helps with heater
La propulsion
control,
est nominale. Tous les paramètres à bord sont normaux.
preventing water-ice condensation, later to be used to position each of the mirror's segments. All 6 reaction wheels and the wheel drive electronics will be powered on for Webb, and that will be the precursor to the attitude control system using those reaction wheels to maintain the proper orientation with the sun, as opposed to using onboard thrusters. Of course, fuel in those thrusters, very valuable. It's a limited commodity for the lifetime of James Webb's observations of the universe.
Pour l'observation de l'univers par la suite.
We're 13 minutes 55 seconds
Tous les paramètres à bord sont normaux.
50 secondes de vol.
Boyer, the range operations manager, continues to report a nominal performance for James Webb.
Pour le James Webb.
And again, Luce Fabregat from the European Space Agency, how is this trajectory? being carefully and methodically adjusted to provide the correct parameters in the final stages of ascent.
Yes, Rob, as you can see on this plot, the altitude is slightly going down. It's perfectly normal. The launch vehicle is really on the line where it should be. This decrease of its altitude, slight decrease of its altitude, will allow the launcher to benefit at the upper stage, to benefit of the gravity effect, and to increase its velocity until it reaches the thermal threshold. It's about to reach it, or even already reached it now, and it will go up. And now it will go up and up to the separation of the Webb telescope. It will separate the Webb telescope on a highly elliptic orbit, but still around the Earth. The satellite, the telescope will be released, inserted on an orbit around the Earth with an apogee, a very high apogee above the
trajectory nominal as reported by Jean-Luc Bourrier. You see him in that view, 185 kilometers in altitude, some 4,500 kilometers downrange from the launch site here in Kourou, moving at more than 8 kilometers per second. Right on the plot, right on the trajectory, everything looking great. We are about 9 minutes away from the completion of upper stage ignition.
My pleasure.
It's shut down, and then about a 2.5 minute coast phase before Webb will separate. Observatory separation will be called out. You'll be hearing those calls and the initial calls from Carl Starr, the mission operations manager at the Space Telescope Science Institute at Johns Hopkins, through solar array deploy and the declaration of a power-positive spacecraft. James Webb, of course, will be traveling well beyond the moon to a distance of about 1 million miles away from Earth, settling into a highly elliptical, halo-like orbit to its astronomical observations. And again, as we mentioned earlier,
Okay, I'm just going to mute the feed here. So obviously we're hearing not one but two commentaries side by side. It's the official NASA commentary, also the French, the ESA French commentary. That is just coming straight off the NASA feed, so we don't have any control over that here. I think at this point, I think I'm okay with muting it just for a bit, unless you all feel strongly otherwise. I'm happy to bring it back up, but. What an amazing launch. I know that we're still launching as we speak in a very real sense, but that second stage is just performing nominally. You could see that track right there on our screen. You could see the dotted green track is where it wants to go, and the yellow track is where it really is. So you could just see this is basically as close to a perfect launch as it could possibly be thus far. And I'm so glad to have all you guys joining us this morning. So Patty, welcome. How are you feeling? How are you doing over there?
Very relieved, and excited. It's so much work goes into getting an observatory ready for taking observations, but the launch period is so dramatic and dangerous for the observatory. So it's still kind of nail biter time here, but everything looks fantastic. We really have entered the next phase for the James Webb Space Telescope, so super exciting.
Great. I see a couple of people asking for the audio to be returned. Just let me know, yay audio, no audio, yay commentary, no commentary, otherwise we can chat and just hang out. I'm flexible, guys. I think we're all pretty flexible right now. I got one person repeatedly asking for audio to come back, but no one else is. So we'll just keep chatting. So Patty, so what is your involvement with this mission? First of all, you hosted a wonderful podcast on NASA's Curious Universe. If you haven't listened to it, folks, I highly recommend that you subscribe and go back and get those episodes that Patty hosted. But Patty, have you been involved in this mission in any other capacity?
Actually, I am not involved in any way in the James Webb Space Telescope, other than being very anxious to see the data start streaming in, especially for exoplanets. I work on missions that discover exoplanets, like TESS, which is operating now, and the Kepler and K2 missions, which sort of paved the way for discovering transiting exoplanets, has been out of commission for a few years. but some of TESS's most recent discoveries are on the observing list for the first year of observations for the James Webb Space Telescope. So in particular, there's a program called Early Release Science. These were proposals that were taken in from the entire community, and there are several very large teams of astronomers that are looking forward to seeing, just basically testing out all the different modes on the instruments and getting some like benchmark data sets. The exoplanets programs are the most exciting for me there.
So you undoubtedly have worked with people. Like I said, you work on TESS. You went through your own little personal moment of I don't want to say anxiety, but excitement when TESS launched a couple of years ago. Now you're watching Webb launch. Is there a how does Webb fit into what TESS is doing? Because what is TESS doing? And then is there a joint link between TESS and Webb?
Oh yeah, they're actually meant to work in concert. You can think of so TESS stands for the Transiting Exoplanet Survey Satellite, and that's exactly what it's doing. It's taking a survey of the entire sky, looking for transiting exoplanets. So what that means is a planet that passes in front of its star. An exoplanet is a star in orbit, is a planet in orbit around a star other than our sun. And transiting exoplanets are lined up perfectly so that when they pass between us and the star, the light from the star dims a little bit. So TESS is specifically designed to look at a huge swath of the sky at one time without blinking, looking for these tiny dips, to discover transits around nearby bright stars. So those are the real treasure trove systems that we're after. If they're around nearby stars, the stars are typically brighter.
Right.
And that means that we can collect more photons from them. That's why we put these huge light buckets up into space, like the James Webb Space Telescope, to collect photons, to collect light from these systems and take spectroscopy and give us some hint of what's going on there. So TESS is quite tiny compared to Webb. It really does literally look like a finder scope. But its 4 cameras have discovered, more than 150 confirmed planets by now. We've got more than 4,000. We just crossed the threshold of 5,000 candidate systems. That means these are very promising systems that need a little bit more observations. And then sifting through them to come out with these sort of, perfect, really exciting
Patty,
systems that we can.
It looks like we have burnout on our second stage.
Normal, the trajectory is fully normal, fully as expected, as you can see on the plot with the red, with the yellow plot over the green one.
The French is part of the NASA feed. There's nothing we can do about that.
22 minutes into the flight.
22 minutes.
That's what happens on international missions.
Yeah.
Yeah, they provided the rocket, so they're gonna run it in French.
And they also provided the MIRI instruments.
As we mentioned before,
we're going to say, cool, yeah, merci. Merci
everything
beaucoup.
nominal reported by the range operations manager. As we've mentioned before, this is a long ride uphill for the James Webb Space Telescope.
Okay, so Bax is saying 3 more minutes of powered flight. Oh, okay, so that engine is still burning. Okay.
Beyond the moon towards its final orbit for its commissioning activities that will be the
Okay, so I'll go ahead and bring that off right now. Okay, I see it now. I see the little animation thingy with the little flamey thingy on it. So yeah, and this animation is all being driven by the telemetry. So it's not like they're like pre-rolling a movie for us for our entertainment. It's actually the animation is doing what the telemetry, what the spacecraft and the rocket are telling it to do. So Patty, I do apologize for the false interruption there, but so you're saying that when you're looking for these exoplanets with TESS, it sounds like TESS being the name of the mission is to survey, to look for exoplanets, correct? And so what's the connection to James Webb?
So James Webb is a perfect instrument to take the next step in figuring out what these planets are like as places. So when we discover an exoplanet, really the first piece of information we get about it is its size. What is the radius of the planet that's dimming that light? And we can measure the radius of the planet with respect to the radius of the star and get a really good estimate of the size of this planet. But that's not much. That's not much to go on. We also want to know things about the density of the planet. So if you look at the planets in our own solar system, the first thing that starts to differentiate them is the small rocky ones that are more dense, like Earth, and the ones interior to our solar system, Venus, Mercury, Mars. And then those outer planets, they're gas giants. So they're gaseous, they have huge atmospheres, and they're much less dense. So if we can measure the mass of a planet, we can get its density. And there are far fewer planets where we have a density known than just the size. That's still just another step along the journey. Now we'd like to know, given what the density is, what's it like there? What is the atmosphere like? So if you look at, say, Earth and Venus, they're very similar in size, very similar in density, but their atmospheres are tremendously different, right? We have an atmosphere here that is super supportive of life, you know, many, many different types of life. And Venus, no.
Now we have second stage shutdown.
Extinction ESC.
That's it. I think we're safe.
I think so. I think we're all done. We're all done with the shutdown. So there's not going to be any more burns, right? So this is
l'extinction du moteur a été confirmée et s'est déroulée exactement.
This is exciting. I don't know about you guys, but this is freaking awesome.
Maintenant,
It's fantastic.
L'étage supérieur se trouve à l'altitude et à la vitesse. Exactement comme prévu. Nous sommes maintenant entrés dans la phase balistique qui va durer à peu près 2 minutes, un peu plus que 2 minutes.
And the telescope controllers in Baltimore confirming that all of the function parameters for the James Webb Space Telescope have been loaded on board the telescope. We are expecting Webb separation at the 27-minute 7-second mark here into the flight.
Okay.
Okay. Over a minute.
That's coming soon.
That's a minute.
Gently push Webb away from the upper stage of the Ariane 5. As it moves further and further away from the upper stage, there'll be what we refer to as a collision avoidance maneuver.
Effectivement, les ressorts vont permettre de créer une distance entre les deux objets, entre le télescope et l'étage supérieur. Et ensuite, cet étage supérieur va quitter la trajectoire du télescope et réaliser une manœuvre spéciale pour dépasser le télescope et se diriger vers une orbite de libération. Ce qui va laisser le télescope sur son orbite sans aucun risque de collision et sans le risque que la pollution
And we're about 17 seconds away from Webb separation.
C'est 17 secondes de la séparation du James Webb.
So I guess this is the part where
there it goes.
Wow.
There it goes. Oh, come on. Can we get to the cameras? Do we have the camera on board? Is it bringing us in?
Séparation
Oh, that would be
Webb
great.
Space Telescope. Go Webb!
Woohoo!
Oh, man. Now I can breathe.
We do have confirmation of observatory separation.
On vient d'avoir confirmation
James
de
Webb
séparation
Space Telescope amidst applause here
zip.
in the Mission
qui
Control
sont
Center,
salués par les
now
applaudissements
taking its
dans
first
la
steps
salle
in
Jupiter
pursuit
ici.
of
Et
cosmological
le
discovery.
James Webb fait ses premiers pas dans cet espace qui va lui réserver tant de
It was a
découvertes.
perfect
Okay,
ride to orbit.
there's footage down there. Okay, so this is on a delay.
And all of the separation sequence events
Toutes les
are running in
séquences
good
de
fashion
séparation
according to
se
the
sont
telescope controllers.
conformément à
Oh.
toutes les prévisions.
And there is the
Amazing.
view from the upper stage camera on the Ariane 5 looking at the James Webb Space Telescope as it moves
Farewell, Webb.
Ces images
from this launch vehicle.
s'éloignent de son lanceur,
Have a
de sa
good mission.
matrice.
Merry Christmas, everyone.
Gorgeous.
Merry Christmas. Yeah. AJ has it. Merry Christmas, Earth. Look at that. That's your Christmas present, everyone. That's your Christmas present.
Ironically enough, as we marvel on this view from the upper stage camera, this will be humanity's last view of the James Webb Space Telescope as it moves to its workplace about 1 million miles away from Earth.
Oui, c'est exactement ça.
Can you imagine all those people that worked on this
C'est des images.
Now
observatory?
we'll be hearing
I know. What
shortly
must
from
be
the mission
what must
operations
they be
manager
thinking
of the
right now?
Space Telescope Science Institute, Carl Starr, who will be calling out the procedures that will lead to the deployment of Webb's solar array.
Look at that. Just beautiful.
There we go.
Goodbye and hello.
Look at that.
It's goodbye and it's hello at the same time. You know, it's like it's there it goes.
In the fishbowl where there is jubilation. Let's go to Raphael.
There's the solar array. I didn't know it was going to deploy that quickly.
So now it's got power.
Raphael,
solar rays.
Than planned, but there is the solar array.
It is earlier.
Deployed.
Okay.
James Webb now has its array out.
Oh, this is fantastic!
That it is power positive.
Whoa.
We have power!
So now something powered, some version of James Webb with power is going to make it up to the L2 Lagrange point.
Yes. If we have power, we have a mission.
We have a mission, exactly.
We now have a mission, friends.
So now there's another 29 days with hundreds of actuators that all need to go.
All right.
There's your critical call.
So those things are not safe.
Now it's another 29 days of 344 single points of failure that we have to avoid.
Let's go down to the floor in the fishbowl and Raphael Chevrier of Arianespace.
Holy damn, that was awesome.
And the confirmation that Ariane 5 has safely delivered Webb into space. The upper stage is now being placed on a safe escape orbit around the sun. But honestly, I've got to tell you that these images are absolutely incredible. And it may be the end of the mission for Ariane Space, but it's only the beginning of the journey for Webb. It's now on its way to the Lagrange point. Congratulations to all the team involved in the flight. Really, there is no words to describe the emotion that is happening right now in the fishbowl.
Oh, look, Santa's there.
All I can say is good luck, Webb, and bring us incredible data from the deep universe.
So I think at this point, they may have lost their camera from the. Oh, that's at Space Telescope Science Institute, guys. That's right down in Baltimore. That's the control. That's a control center.
A new era of scientific observation. Loose fabricate, it was a smooth ride to orbit. Everything went by the book, almost like a simulation.
I noticed. So obviously we lost that shot from the. We lost that shot from the second stage. I guess that may have been because of the avoidance maneuver that they executed to get the second stage away. I'll go ahead and just mute that there. Yeah, so they executed the second stage executes an avoidance maneuver, a special avoidance maneuver, just to make sure that none of its exhaust plumes, could potentially contaminate the spacecraft. So the camera necessarily has to pivot away at some point. So anyway, so now a question that's coming in is, so now it's all controlled by Webb itself. Specifically it's being controlled by the Webb Operations Control Center at the Space Telescope Science Institute in Baltimore, Maryland. So it's, as they said in the commentary, Arianespace have done their job and they've done it extremely well. I gotta say. I mean, that was just an amazing launch. How cool is that? So, how y'all feeling right now, Fraser, Patty? How you feeling right now?
Fraser, go ahead.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, again, man, I just feel like we've been joking about this. We've been nervous about this. We've been talking about this. The internet is filled with memes about this moment, and here we are on the other side of it. It has launched. It's deployed its solar arrays. It has transferred from sitting on the ground through all of the stages of flight, and now it's on its way to the L2 Lagrange point. And even if there's any issue, as you said, with the 300 plus individual events that now have to go perfectly right for it to be in its fully operational status, some amount of science is going to start getting done by James Webb at the very least. So it's pretty amazing, but it is definitely going to be nerve-wracking for sure for the next, this is not like other missions where TESS, we watched the TESS launch and it just launched the rocket into this beautiful orbit And then we knew that the telescope was fine and safe, and we could start looking forward to science. We've got 29 more days of this, so buckle up. I've even told anyone we're going to keep running this live stream for 29 straight days.
Oh yeah, we're here, guys.
Final configuration.
Yep, we are going to grow old on this live stream together. It's going to be wonderful.
Patty, how you feeling?
Yeah, Patty, how you doing?
Every time a launch is about to occur, the people who are invested in the mission at every level, from the folks that have worked on it, their whole careers, to people that are just looking forward to the data coming down, it's a very mixed bag of emotions, right? It's so much anticipation, but also huge fear. Like, that it's basically like your baby on top of there, and the universe of possibilities is still open to you, and things can go wrong. So there's no one that's watching this launch that's relaxed. It's terrifying, and it's great to just watch. It's a very well orchestrated timeline. Everything that has to happen as far as engine burns and where you expect it to be oriented, and how much power. Just to watch that timeline be checked off and everything nominal. Your anxiety level starts to decrease.
Yeah.
So I'm just so thrilled for the team, especially the people that have been, totally invested in this for years now, to have been able to experience this perfect launch and to just have that visual confirmation that, there she goes, and look at that array begins to deploy. Here we go. We're there. We're basically through the birth canal, right? And taking the first breaths, or lack of breaths, into space. But it's a very good analogy, going from one type of life to the next type of life. And just to see, the control room transfer from the folks that are working in every aspect of the rocket, they're sort of like, sunsetting now, and then to turn that over to the observatory operators at the Space Telescope Science Institute in Baltimore, for them to take over and start their job. It's really exciting.
Just handing off their baby. Here we built this, we birthed this. Now raise it. And to continue the child analogy. Just to want to say, thank you very much, Hawk Productions, for the super chat. Great job, everyone. Awesomeness. Thank you very much. And really, it's having all of you here with us that's making this so even awesomer. And there was another question that came through. So obviously, how long will it take to reach L2? That's still going to take on the order of about 30 days. And another question that came in is, so is it just coasting from here on out? No, not entirely. There's actually another. There's actually going to be 3 more, but one critical engine burn that's coming up, and this time the engines will be on the Webb telescope itself. So Patty or Fraser, do you want to speak to why that's a thing?
Well, the earliest burns are the most critical. When in orbital mechanics. So the first burn is really the one that's going to get us onto the trajectory that we'll get onto to get to L2. L2 is 1 million miles away, and it's 4 times the full moon distance from Earth. So getting there is really important. And Webb launched with all the fuel that it's ever going to have.
Yeah.
So if we get a nice clean burn early on, and we're very close to where we expect to be finally, then the subsequent burns can be pretty small, and that would leave Webb with a great amount of fuel for when we get to L2. Because L2 is this really interesting point where it's stable enough, but you have to do some station keeping around it. What that means is basically burning a little bit of fuel so that you know where the spacecraft is, so that you can do your communications and keep the thermal situation the way it is. So we want to be able to get there with as much fuel as possible, so that we can have the longest mission possible. So that's why there's a lot of excitement and anxiety about the first burn as well. Let's hope that one is as picture perfect as what we've seen so far.
And that really, as you said, that's the most critical burn because, and first of all, Evan, thank you so much for the super chat. And we also had another super chat from Night of Knee earlier. Thank you very much for a super sticker. So yeah, one thing to add to that, Patty, is that with that first burn, it really is critical because if you think about it, you're trying to get to, you're here and you're trying to get to here. And if you are off course, you have to burn a lot of fuel to correct. Whereas if you're slightly off course, you only have to burn a little bit of fuel to correct. And as you pointed out, Patty, that is... I'm sorry, I realize my fingers aren't in the frame, right? So what I'm trying to point out is that if you're trying to get to here and you're here, right? If you are off course, you have to burn a lot of fuel to correct. But if you are off course early on, you only have to burn a little bit of fuel to correct. So that's why that first burn is so critically important, because that's going to play a huge role in defining just how much fuel they'll have in reserves to actually carry out the mission. So yeah, that is super critical. So we had a nice super chat from P. Gupta. Thank you so much for the generous super chat. How does JWST get into an orbit that is perpendicular to its path? Well, that's a great question. Fraser, Patty, you want to speak to that as well, because let's talk about like what we're saying. Like if we're Earth over here, Webb is going to be doing one of these, right? It's going to be orbiting around L2. So how does it actually do that? How does it actually go how does it go from this to this?
Well, the key is that the Lagrange points are, as Patty was saying, there are these semi-stable points in various interactions between the Earth and the Sun, and there's 5 of them in total. But the one, the L2 point, is the one that is about 1.5 million kilometers beyond the orbit of the Earth, and it's kind of like standing at the top of a mountain. Is a way that I like really sort of describing it gravitationally, because you can stand at the L2 point, and then if you start to drift out of that point, then you'll start to come down the side of that mountain, and you'll go faster and faster and faster, and you'll shift away from the Lagrange point. But it's not an actual point in space. It's a region where the Earth's distance from the Sun is changing over the course of the year. And so that's sort of making this point where you want to sort of maintain in. And so what you're doing is if you look at it, like you scale way out, you're seeing like the telescope make its way all the way up to the top of this mountain of gravity and reach the very tip top. But then it's going to do some orbital maneuvers to shift it into a place where it's trying to balance its position within this region so that it is using the minimum amount of propellant possible over the course of the year, as all of these different gravitational interactions are happening. And a lot of people ask, like, why is it only going to last for 10 years? That's because it has to actively use propulsion throughout this period to stay in this region. And when its propellant runs out, it will drift farther and farther out of the L2 point and no longer be able to do its job. So that actual final movement is tiny compared to the giant distance that it's traveled and the enormous boost that it's gotten from here on Earth. It's just reaching the top of the mountain and then sort of turning around on top of it.
So it's not going to be... Yeah, go ahead, Patty. Go ahead.
I love that analogy because it really is about the energy that the observatory gets, and different spacecraft are on different orbits, and there's a whole field of flight dynamics that's working, calculating exactly how much thrust you need to get to what orbit you want. So the TESS spacecraft, for example, is in a really interesting orbit where it's a highly elliptical orbit. It goes around the Earth every 2 weeks. So it does 2 orbits for 1 lunar orbit around the Earth. And so we had to have very special burns to get into that orbit and maneuvers. And the same thing is true for the James Webb Space Telescope. It's just, we know where it's going to be in space. We know exactly what energy it has to have in order to stay there. And all of these, maneuvers that we've seen so far and that we're about to see, they're all about getting to that energy to put it right into that stable orbit at L2.
Right. So, and so one thing I guess that's a question that's relevant here is that we're describing orbiting L2. So L2 is a mathematical point in space beyond Earth's orbit from the Sun. So why not just put the telescope at L2? Why do we have to do all this orbiting stuff?
Oh, because that point is changing its location. So the point is generated. Essentially, it's when you think about it, you've got the gravity of the Sun and the gravity of the Earth, and the L2 point is on an orbit that's a little higher than the orbit of the Earth as it's going around the Sun with the Earth, and because you've got essentially you've got the pull of the sun and the pull of the Earth together, you can have this point remain relatively stable. But over the course of an entire year, the Earth is getting a few million kilometers closer to the sun and then a few million kilometers farther from the sun. You've got the moon going around the Earth, which is causing some of the changes to the position of where the L2 exactly falls. And then you've also got the gravitational interactions of Jupiter. So it all adds up to make the exact point where L2 is a moving target. And so instead of trying to move your telescope around at this point that could be moving very quickly, you just try to remain in the region in a way that just balances out all the different gravitational interactions to give you the longest time in that area with the minimum amount of propellant used over the course of the lifetime of the mission.
Okay, great. So now, and we're just going to keep hanging on here because we got we want to make sure that our that critical burn, when does that happen? Does anybody remember?
I think it's about 12 hours after launch.
We're not going to stay that long. Okay. Would you guys be okay hanging on for a second? I'm going to go ahead and switch over just to the two of you while I take care of some, mother-in-law's coming over, and I got to make sure she gets into the door okay. So.
Sure. Well, we'll tackle a few more questions that we see as
let me go ahead and bring Patty in here, yeah, I know. Yes, hang on. Yes, they know that I'm live streaming, but I got to go and do a little bit. Got to give a little bit of a help here. So, be right back.
Awesome.
So Patty, I'd love to know what. You talked about the idea of TESS being the finder telescope for James Webb. What are the kinds of planets the kind of candidate planets that you would be finding with TESS that would be great to pass along to James Webb for further observation?
Yeah, that's a great question. So TESS was designed to find small planets. So we're really focusing on ones that are smaller than 4 times the radius of the Earth, which is about the size of Neptune. So TESS is preferentially following up these systems that have planets Neptune size or smaller. But it can find all kinds of planets, all kinds of sizes, and there's lots of giant planets in the data as well. One of the interesting things about the exoplanet demographics, like when you look at the statistics of planets around other stars, is that the most common planet out there is a planet that's bigger than Earth, but smaller than Neptune. So sometimes referred to as super Earths, maybe twice as big as Earth, a little bit smaller than that, and mini Neptunes, things that are 2, 3, or up to 4 times the size of the Earth's radius. We don't have anything like that in our solar system. So we don't really know too much about what those planets are like, but they're probably offering a lot of clues about how planets and planetary systems form in general because they're so plentiful out there. So some really exciting planets to go after, to start looking at with Webb, to see like what are the components of its atmospheres, would be planets like super Earths and mini Neptunes. But actually some of the first planets that we'll look at with Webb are giant planets. So, planets that are Jupiter-like planets in other solar systems. They're not like Jupiter because they're very hot and very close to their stars. We'd really like to understand some of the dynamics and chemistry of what's going on in giant planets like that are super close to their stars. So those are the kind of observations that will be going for in the early release series of observations. Then there's two different types of observations you can make with Webb. You can do that if you want to look for atmospheres. You can look at these planets as they transit, so some of that light will pass through their atmospheres and you'll be able to hopefully untangle some of the fingerprints of those atmospheres. But it can also do some direct imaging observations, so blocking out the light of a star to start to collect the light from the planet and get some information about what's going on in the planet's atmosphere that way. So those are 2 different types of observations, the direct imaging and the transiting spectroscopy, and we're just looking forward to both. Very complimentary.
That's amazing. It's and by the way, thank you very much for holding the fort here. This is what happens when you stream on Christmas morning, everyone. Family comes over and you deal with it. What a wonderful problem to have. That's just another great problem. Yeah. So Oh, okay. So it's Lisa Campbell from CSA. Hey, there you go, Fraser. Up there from the Great White North. Let's see.
Yeah, Canada supplied one of the instruments to James Webb, and so they're involved in the mission as well.
Do you remember which instrument it was that they supplied?
Oh, I don't remember the name.
I think it was
the NIRISS and the fine guidance sensor.
Yeah, NIRISS FGS. Thank you, Patty. That's it. Yeah, I was trying to remember what it was, and as soon as you said it, yep, absolutely. So, you're welcome, Sharon. Thank you, Launchpad Astronomy, helping lay people understand this whole process. Hey, you know what? We're all lay at something, and so we're glad to share it with you. And we're really lucky that we have the big guns here with Patty. Just letting y'all know. So, it's
And Fraser, are you Canadian? Are you watching from Canada?
Yeah, I'm on the west coast of Canada.
Yeah, it's really early where he is. He got on he got on this stream at like 3:30 his time. It's just amazing.
Yeah.
Just doing yeoman's work here. So
definitely going back to bed as soon as this is all over.
We're so thankful.
In 30 days.
Yeah, exactly. Because we got some stuff going on, man. And by the way, if you're ready to go back to sleep, please go back to sleep. We're totally cool here, but you're more than welcome to hang out. So we and we have another super chat from Evan. Just incredible. Nowhere I'd rather be tonight. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays, everyone. So excited about Webb. Happy to see a successful launch. What will the first pictures we expect to see? The $100 million question. So what are the first pictures we expect to see?
Well, I don't think we know what the first pictures are going to be. We're going to have to wait 6 months for the commissioning of the telescope. I mean, we've got the first 30 days for it to reach this final orbit, and then it's going to spend another 5 months as they with the sun shield deployed. The telescope has to cool down to its coldest possible temperature, and that's so that it can let its infrared sensors work properly and be able to do its job of imaging these objects in this in near infrared. And so we're going to wait about 6 months. So like, you're probably all going to forget about James Webb for a little while, and then we'll come back and go, oh, the first pictures are here. But what it's going to take pictures of, I'm sure it's going to sort of depend on what they want to test out, which parts of the telescope they're looking to test out to make sure they get the right sensitivity. So I guess your guess is as good as mine.
Yeah, I think if I understand it correctly, the actual images are a very closely guarded secret. They don't want to. I'm sure it's partly because they want to give themselves a little bit of that cool surprise factor, and it may also be because they may decide, yeah, you know what, this picture didn't turn out so well. Let's do something different. I doubt that would be the case. I think they understand the instruments extremely well, so I doubt that they would be surprised in a negative way by the images. But it sounds like those are going to be held in confidence until such time as deemed appropriate to reveal.
It'll be our Christmas present 6 months after Christmas, and I'm just reminded of all the servicing missions. So Hubble is in low Earth orbit, and it was serviced by astronauts 5 times. The last time is over a decade ago now. But every time it was serviced, it was basically having to go through commissioning again to commission, the new instruments or the new modes. And each time that happened, there was always an early release, like an early science observation that was released. And some of those are the most iconic images ever from Hubble. I remember the Butterfly Nebula is a beautiful example. That was really just an image to be released to show that it was working and to get, folks excited about what was to come. So they made an excellent choice there. And, it's a big reveal is very exciting too.
The images that I'm going to be most excited to see are the ones that are a comparison to the other telescopes that we're a lot more familiar with. James Webb isn't exactly a successor to the Hubble Space Telescope. Hubble can see in infrared and visible light and ultraviolet, while James Webb is focused specifically on infrared. But there are a lot of other infrared telescopes out there. There was Spitzer, Herschel, and they have taken some just absolutely incredible images of various objects in space. the Milky Way and things like that. And I think the pictures that I'm going to be most interested in seeing are going to be these comparison images when they use James Webb to take a picture of the same region, the same nebula, the same star forming region, the same galaxy cluster that was seen by Spitzer or Herschel, and then you'll really get a sense of the power and capability of James Webb. And of course, the other image that I'm most excited to see is when James Webb does its version of the Hubble Deep Field, when they take James Webb, stare at one tiny, supposedly galaxyless region of space, and just see what's there. And with James Webb, it's like hard to just wrap your mind around it. James Webb will be able to see right out to the edge of the observable universe, to see the first galaxies coming together, to watch as the building blocks of the modern galaxies that we have today, as they were first coming together. We've never seen this before. And any image of this will be a boon to science.
Absolutely
I completely agree.
Yeah,
I think that the Hubble Deep Field, it's had such an amazing history from the first image that was, integrated for so long, to just see like what's going on there, to the additional exposures to add information, to add colors to it. And it just opened up, revolutionized the field of galaxy evolution. But it also was enticing, like what's beyond what Hubble can see, what's redshifted beyond what's even capable of detecting in these deep fields. So this is really, you're right. I mean, that Webb image is going to be the chance to peer even deeper. And that's, I think, what astronomers have been hoping for about a generation now.
As I understand it, they will be actually pointing Webb into the same direction as the Hubble Ultra Deep Field, so that there's a side-by-side comparison, you might say, an optical and then an infrared. Also, that field, another reason to aim at that field is because it's already been figured out. In other words, it took a lot of work. Believe it or not, this sounds hard to believe, but it took a lot of work to choose a pointing location that was devoid of stars and devoid of dust within our solar system, as well as galactic dust, trying to find a clear keyhole to peer through to take that image. So and they've done other fields as well. There's not that that's the only place in the sky, but it took a lot of work. So they're going to go ahead and use that field, and so we're going to get this nice comparison. And hopefully we're going to get to see just how many more galaxies and how much more information the Webb will be able to bring to us. And I think that's just going to be tremendously exciting. Now, as I understand, that's not going to take place for probably at least a year or two, because they want to basically spend the first year just really knowing how Webb works, how to really get the maximum performance out of the cameras. So maybe in a couple of years, we're going to get a real nice Webb Deep Field.
Yeah, it's going to be really exciting. And the observing program is designed in such a way that the entire astronomical community can really get their feet wet quickly with the data. So, there's going to be a lot of public data available early in all areas of astrophysics. Exoplanets is one of them, but there's also a lot of, galaxy evolution science, stellar astrophysics. People will be able to start getting their hands dirty with that and figure out what should we do next time to submit proposals for cycle 2, the second year of observations. So right. Yeah, I think you're going to see a lot of boxes ticked off, do we make this observation? Yes. Does this community have what they need to get going? Yes. And then those more sophisticated, longer term observations being added to that queue as time goes on.
That's amazing.
And Webb is going to be much more efficient than Hubble was, which I think is an interesting comparison that we don't usually talk about. Hubble's in low Earth orbit, so every orbit there's a period of time where it can't really look at where you'd want to look at because it's in a shadow. It's being it's just the orientation isn't such that it can keep looking continuously. But where Webb is, it doesn't have that problem. It's way past the Earth. It's not going to have those occultations, and it's also a much bigger collecting area. So it's going to be way more efficient than Hubble is, and it's going to just be, bringing in so much science so quickly. It's amazing to think about what people will be able to do with the data in just the next year.
Arjuan says it's all dust. Yeah, dust is a thing, but hey, the great news is that Webb's got the ability to see through a lot of that dust. I mean, that's a big reason why we went to the infrared with Spitzer, Herschel, and now Webb.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So we have a few questions that have come in. I'm going to try to discuss a few of these with you because there's some very interesting questions here. And let's see. Any update on the schedule to view the TRAPPIST star system by James Webb Space Telescope? I believe the TRAPPIST system is, in fact, in the Cycle 1 observing program.
And if you give me a couple minutes, I can actually probably come up with the plan for that.
Okay, cool.
All of the observing information is online and publicly available for those early release science observations, so stand by.
All right, great. And then we had another question here. What is the lifespan of the James Webb Telescope? Well, a minimum. It's designed for a minimum mission of 5 years, but the expectation is that they should be able to get at least 10 years out of it. And now that raises the next question. Well, then what if they run out of fuel? Can they refuel it? And the answer is
maybe.
Maybe. We'll see.
Yeah. It was not planned to be refueled, but as you saw James Webb moving away in the animation, you could see it's got the ring that the upper stage was clamped to,
right,
and you've got the fuel line nozzle holes that go into actually James Webb, which is how they were able to refuel it and connect up electronics and stuff through the upper stage. So in theory, and I've talked to people at NASA, this is a question that everyone always wants to know about, is there some way to let James Webb work longer? Because it seems like a horrible shame to only have this telescope work for less than a decade. And
of course we're spoiled by Hubble, but
but that's the advantage of it being in low Earth orbit. But in theory, you could send up some kind of tug that could clamp on using that very standard docking ring, connect up to the propellant and electronics, and attempt to either provide additional propellant into the spacecraft or just act like a thruster that could move it around and keep it in play. And I would not be surprised if, as we start to find out exactly what the lifespan of James Webb is going to be, someone is going to propose building this, because it seems for a fraction of the price of James Webb, you could have this telescope working for years longer. But if other issues crop up that would require, say, astronauts to fix, I can't imagine seeing a rescue mission out to James Webb in the same way that they did with Hubble. Having one telescope in low Earth orbit is completely different than one that is 1.5 million kilometers away, 5 times farther than any human being has ever flown in space, a month out and a month back. That's a big ask to fix a telescope.
That may be a bridge too far. Yeah. But hey, if we develop that capability, fantastic. I mean, nothing's impossible. I think at the end of the day, it all comes down to, is it a good use of resources? If Webb is having all kinds of problems and all that kind of stuff, and 3 out of 4 of its instruments are dead, and for whatever reason, well, then maybe it doesn't make sense to refuel it. I don't know. It's all going to come down to whether or not the science is worth the cost in terms of time, resources, and of course money to do it. Do you do that, or do you build your next mission? And these are all decisions these are choices and decisions that have to be made. It's not necessarily no, we're not going to refuel it because we don't want to. It's not like that. It all comes down to these sometimes difficult decisions to make, but for now we just launched it, so let's not worry too much about that. Hey,
there's a lot of different voices in the decision-making process at this point in time, right? Like, it's not just NASA and it's not just astrophysics. You can imagine that, say, SpaceX would want to get into the game of robotic refueling. There's a lot of things that could benefit from robotic refueling. So you can imagine trying to do it just as a demonstration, right? Proof of concept. If we wanted to robotically refuel something in an interesting orbit, what would be something to try? And there are things at L2. JWST is not the first thing going to L2. So there are some defunct observatories and other things there, it could be worth a demonstration to see if it can be done. So I wouldn't be surprised if there were groups that were trying to show that they could do that, that were motivated by things in addition to just whether there's cool astrophysics to be done by refueling an observatory.
You don't necessarily, so you're saying that you don't even have to roll the dice on Webb. You could do a demonstration. You could demonstrate L2 rendezvous with one of the other spacecraft that are still out there.
I would think someone could, try that. And it's like we've been talking about, it's a very interesting position because it is stable. And if we are eventually going to be sending humans back to the moon, which is a huge goal at NASA, right? The next man and the first woman on the moon real soon now. The next step is to get to Mars. That's part of the long-term journey. And what's the place between the moon and Mars? Well, maybe sending people to L2, or certainly sending a robotic spacecraft to L2 is part of that journey of learning how to get beyond where we've been before.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So just a couple of other questions that have come in that I'd like to try to get to here. Actually, someone asked, well, first of all, another generous super chat from Nicholas Paulson. Successful JWST launch, best Christmas present ever. Maybe I've already posted some of these, but I just want to make sure I'm getting shouting my thanks out to everybody. So, well, Elliot, I guess we just talked about that, right? So you probably had answered that question before, and then I just stumbled across it, and now I've already posted that. So Vishnu, we're thinking about 6 months approximately. I mean, it could take a little bit longer before we see the first results. It's all going to depend on just how long they need to get everything working just exactly perfect. And the notional or the nominal commissioning period is about 6 months post-launch. We'll see. Maybe it'll be 7. Maybe it'll be 5. But I think it's going to probably be around 6 months or so. So I guess, go ahead, Patty.
I guess there's excuse me. Number one, you want to make sure that the telescope gets as cold as it's going to get, because those instruments are really designed to work at a specific and very low temperature that just takes time to get there. We're leaving the Earth and we're leaving a rocket, a very warm environment. But the other thing that's important to remember is that the James Webb Space Telescope primary mirror is made up of 18 separate hexagonal segments. And at this point in time, each one of them is operating as an independent unit. But to get this telescope to perform at the exquisite abilities that we're anticipating, those 18 hexagonal mirrors need to begin to work in concert. And that is in a very elaborate system of each mirror and knowing where it is and what configuration it's in, and being able to communicate with itself and each other to adjust. And that's a lot of what's going to happen over the next 6 months. Those folks at Space Telescope Science Institute are, very much looking forward to getting those mirrors operational and working together. So each mirror will be taking data, and they'll be comparing that data, images from each independent mirror, and syncing them up and getting everything cooled down. So it's not like we're going to just have 6 months of cruise phase and nothing happening. There's going to be a tremendous amount of commissioning operations that happen between now and when we're actually feeling okay, declare success, ready to take science observations.
Excellent. And just one other question that came in I wanted to come to. Let's see. Oh, yeah. Do you think it would be possible or impossible to find Webb while it's operating in Lagrange point? That's a question that's come up a fair amount. I think somebody did in fact post well, there is an ephemeris out there as to where Webb should be, where it should be expected to be. I know it's going to be very, very faint. I think they're anticipating somewhere around was it 12th or 13th magnitude? It's going to be really faint. So no,
fainter than that.
Maybe fainter than that. Yeah. So
about when it's at L2 and
when it's Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's fainter than 12.
I mean, I think we're going to find some really, really brilliant astro imagers who are going to capture some points of light as it works its way out to L2. I think once it's in operation, I mean, the good news is that it's going to be big and shiny, but the bad news is that it's very, very far. So yeah, it's going to be very faint. Is it impossible to see? No, it is not impossible to see. If you've got the telescope and you've got a good ephemeris and you know exactly where to point and you're very patient, you will find it. I don't think I have the kind of equipment to do that. And a generous super chat from Huzin PL. Thank you very much for that. Really appreciate it, sir. And we also have another question here. Will it be looking at the Alpha Centauri system? Well, Patty, I understand there's a planet at Alpha Centauri. Or Proxima Centauri.
Well, there is Proxima Cen-B, right? One of the most exciting exoplanets that we have discovered, mostly because that's the closest star to our sun. And, you know, science fiction writers in particular have been dreaming about finding planets around other stars for centuries. But we are the first generation of humans on the planet that can actually say with certainty that planets are around other stars. And so, you know, we started to put those pieces together over the last 25 years or so. So I think it was probably only a matter of time before we found the planet around the closest star, but that is Prox-B, and it is a really exciting planet. It doesn't transit, so it's not a system that would be exciting for transit spectroscopy from Webb. But there are, I'm going to sort of just pull numbers out of thin air, but there's over 50 exoplanets on the first year's worth of observing schedule for Webb. And of those, wow, I'd say 20 or more are from TESS, the Transiting Exoplanet Survey Satellite. So they are around nearby bright stars. So we will be getting data on exoplanets in our neighborhood real soon now.
Oh, fantastic. Fantastic. And yeah, Ali, I told you we have the big guns here with Patty and with Fraser. You know, between these two, you know, what do you need me for? You know, I mean, this is fantastic. Let's see. How many buttons do you need to press to launch a spaceship? I think one. It says launch. I don't know. So let me come to another question here. So Arjuan asked, is the whole 10 years booked already? No, only that first year is booked. So Fraser, Patty, you want to describe how the observing process works?
Yeah, I'll take a crack at this. So actually NASA, or the people running the Space Telescope, I guess that's Goddard, has been requesting calls for proposals for a couple of years now for the astronomical community to suggest targets that they want Webb to be looking at. And in the last, I guess, about a year or so, they started to wrap up and formalize that first series, that first year of what it's going to be observing. It's fairly fluid still, because various interesting and exciting things can happen. There can be new supernovae, there can be other opportunities, and so things need to shift around. But mostly they've got it all scheduled. I know Patty's been looking at that list of things. And then they'll put up a call for proposals year after year after year and just keep building that schedule forward as they go. So it's only the first year is locked in. The rest of the time is still very flexible. And it's the thing that's really amazing about instruments like this, especially with James Webb telescopes that allow us a view into regions that we've never seen before, is that we don't know what we want to look at. We don't know what questions need answering. The most amazing discoveries are made that you didn't even know you had these as questions.
Yeah. And
so it's going to be, the first year is going to dump an enormous amount of data in the hands of astronomers. Then they're going to go, oh, this is the fascinating, never before seen stuff that we now want to look at. And there's just no way to know in advance what the stuff is going to be. And so we would look back 10 years later and go, of course, these were the most important things to look at. But we have no idea what is going to be worth looking at until the first initial data starts to come in. This first year is crucial. to really set to give astronomers the questions that they need to ask moving forward.
So the Space Telescope Science Institute in Baltimore runs the observing program. So they are the ones who release those call for proposals and review the proposals. And then ultimately that process selects the observing program for a year. And this is the way that, pretty much all the large community facilities on the ground and in space work. Every year there's a call for proposals because these are community resources, right? They're amazing assets. What's the most equitable way to determine what they're going to point at? And so the community consensus is that every year we'll do a competitive selection. And so teams from all over the world are able to write down their best ideas, pitch it as a proposal. And then other members of the community come together and do a peer review of that process. And they rack and stack and they rank what's the most exciting science that we can do in the next year. So that is the process that did happen for cycle 1. These cycle 1 observations have been chosen for a while now, but you're exactly right that the whole process is building on what we already know. So cycle 2 is definitely going to be able to use some of these early observations to determine what's exciting to do. We're seeing a replay of the launch.
Just a little bit of a replay, or as we like to call it, launch porn.
The other thing that's great about this is people always ask, like, what does it cost to use these telescopes? And it's free. And they ask who can have access, and it's anyone in the whole world. So as long as you have a good idea, you can get access, you can get telescope time to see if there's more there.
Yeah. I think one of the coolest parts of that process is that there's always way more good ideas than there is telescope time. So even though, we were talking about earlier that Webb is going to be so much more efficient than Hubble was, that it's going to be able to, snap off observations. There was still many, many more times the requested time in these proposals that came in for cycle 1 than there could be used. Several times more great ideas than we could actually observe in the first year. And so some of those proposals that just were below the line last year, those teams will propose again for cycle 2, and some of them will be successful. But there's always more science to be done than there is time.
Absolutely. Actually, there's a question that came in. Can amateur astronomers like us submit proposals too? I mean, if I have something interesting to begin with. In principle, yes, absolutely. I mean, anybody can submit a proposal. The call for proposals are public. If you can make a strong enough science case, in principle, yeah. In practice, you've got to have a really strong science case, and these proposals are evaluated in a double-blind format, which means, it doesn't matter what letters you have next to your name. It's really just about how strong is your science, and can it pass muster.
I think one of the most exciting things that's happening over the last few years and is really growing is the citizen science component.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of really cool citizen science projects, some of them involving NASA missions, that allow interested amateurs to work together with professionals to do cool things. Like, so there are 2 planet detecting citizen science programs out there. One's called Planet Patrol. And the other one's called, Planet Hunters Test is one of them.
Yeah.
Planet Hunters does a lot. So those are ways that, you can just use your spare time to say, like, oh, does that look like a transit, or does that look like a pretty decent observation? And then as you get involved in those projects, we see collaborations of amateurs and professionals writing follow-on proposals together, writing the papers together. So I think if there are interested amateurs out there that really want to, take that next step and get involved in some of this astrophysics from space, that they should check out the myriad citizen science programs out there and go further.
Absolutely. And we had a couple super chats I just wanted to express gratitude for from Hunzin Pil 1. There we go. Thank you very much for that. And Bobola, thank you so much. Really do appreciate it. RJ Johnson, my old friend, has a question. Happy launch day, everyone. Did ISS have any view of the launch deployment? Thank you for a great stream. Wow, I don't know. I know that if I had to guess, I would say probably not, only because ISS is in such a high inclination orbit, about 52 degrees from the equator, whereas Webb kind of went out through the equator. So unless it was just a very lucky alignment, I doubt it, but hey, who knows? Maybe we'll get some cool shots. But thank you so much for the super chat, man. Really do appreciate it. And another generous super chat from Pero. Is there any new mission at this moment that would be considered as a replacement for JWST someday in the future? I guess they will not wait for JWST end of lifespan to start thinking about that. You're right about that. In fact, they started thinking about what is now JWST before Hubble even launched. So So, Fraser, do you want to talk
there
about
are
that?
a couple of ideas. There are a couple of ideas to follow on James Webb already. The most recent decadal survey, we talked about this right at the beginning of the episode about the process that astronomers use to come up with James Webb in the first place. And they've done 2 more decadal surveys since then. And the most recent one, the 2020 decadal survey, listed out astronomers' requirements. And although there was a lot of big, I know you've probably talked about them, Christian, the LUVOIR, the Origin Space Telescope, HabEx, Lynx. We're probably not going to see those observatories fly, but we're probably going to see something that is going to be a successor to Hubble that is capable of going into the infrared, the visible, and the ultraviolet regime. Probably not as big as the original LUVOIR proposal was, but something that is maybe a little smaller, but a little safer with less technical risk. Learning lessons from James Webb. So something that's going to be probably James Webb sized, but with Hubble sort of capabilities is what I think is going to be coming after James Webb. And then it will work as a partner to James Webb to be able to see into the visible and the ultraviolet as James Webb is working in the infrared. But the missions, and then, other missions have been proposed that would be essentially much bigger versions of even James Webb. But I think, based on the timelines and delays and so on, I'm sure astronomers are a little cautious about undertaking a giant telescope that will eat all their budget again.
Agreed.
Well, so even when it was, so I think that the most exciting thing about the decadal survey that just came out, so it was released publicly in November. So this is very much, news of the day. The top science was understanding exoplanets and the stars that they orbit and the environment that planets find themselves in. So that's the number one driving quest for the next decade. And the mission that was proposed to really advance that really is something that takes the next step beyond JWST. So it's exactly what Fraser was describing. There were mission concepts that had been worked on for years as part of the decadal inputs. One of them was the Large Ultraviolet and Optical Infrared Explorer, or LUVOIR. And that was an enormous telescope, 8 12-foot diameter mirrors, so dwarfing JWST. And then a smaller one, and that was going to be another great observatory. So not just exoplanets, but all kinds of science drivers there. HabEx, or the Habitable Exoplanet Explorer, was a smaller version of that, maybe a 4-meter mirror, and really purpose-built to go after some of these like atmospheric components that we're looking for in exoplanets. Is there water vapor, methane, oxygen? What do you need to do to develop a telescope system that can actually go after those elements in an atmosphere? But the teams that worked on those 2 missions, HabEx and LUVOIR, always knew that this was like really a continuum of options. HabEx about as small as you'd want to go. LUVOIR, enormous and amazing, that's our biggest dream. But really, anywhere along that continuum is going to get you fantastic new exoplanet science, new science in other areas as well. So the fact that the decadal survey recommended something there in the middle, like go after that science and choose something that's it's bigger than HabEx, smaller than LUVOIR, but in that sweet spot in the middle, is the best answer that exoplanet scientists could have ever hoped for from the decadal. And the thing that's really exciting about it is it also is allowing for a period of time where we can mature the technology that we need and mature the mission architecture as well. Everything that goes into a mission and doing it in tandem all together is very exciting. When we launch something like Webb, the technology that's on it is not the very best that we have today. It's the best that we had when we built those instruments in the past.
Right.
So every time we launch something new, we always know that there's something more tantalizing that we could do if we could just launch today's technology. And so that's where we'll be going with the next great observatory. It will definitely go beyond JWST, and we have that mandate now to start to design that mission.
People complain that Webb's obsolete when it launched. Well, every space. Yes, I mean, yes, Webb's been delayed. There's no question about it. Every spacecraft is obsolete at launch.
Absolutely.
Every spacecraft. Doesn't matter how fast you build it. It just takes time. Pete Gupta with a super chat. Thank you so much, Patty. Can you point out or highlight a handful of observations planned for the first year of James Webb? What's your understanding of what's on the Webb's menu for the first cycle?
So there's 3 different ways that people will get time on Webb in the first year. There are guaranteed time observations. So those are some hours that are set aside for the teams that have worked so hard on these instruments. It's a huge team that has put each of the instruments together from the beginning, and they are led by a principal investigator, and there's dozens of co-investigators on them. They've blood, sweat, and tears into these instruments, and they get some guaranteed time. And then there are the early release science observations that we were talking about as well. So that's about 460 hours of sort of like these trying it out observations. And then the third category is the entire community was able to write proposals for the first cycle or cycle 1 observations. So all 3 of those types of science programs will be carried out in the first year. But the ones that I think are the most exciting are the early release observations. So those are, teams of scientists, in particular, I'd say the exoplanet ones, about 100 scientists now from the community, maybe even more and growing all the time, involved in coming together and working collaboratively to just see what the telescope can do. What kinds of actual data are we going to get on exoplanets? Up until this period of time, it's all been based on what we've got from other telescopes and then simulations. And so it's just very exciting to be able to have that opportunity to compare the simulations to the actual data. There's all kinds of tools out there that let you simulate observations. So in that first year of observations, those 3 different categories we talked about, the early release observations, the guaranteed time observations, and cycle 1, there are, way more than 50 exoplanets in there, and of all types, all sizes, with all different science drivers. So just watching that data come down is going to be very exciting. But that's just one of those early release teams. There's a team that's just as excited for galaxy evolution, for going after individual active galaxies like blazars and seeing what we can learn about these supermassive black holes at the center of virtually every galaxy that we see. So the Milky Way is our galaxy. It's got 100 billion or more stars in it. And we know the universe is strewn with these galaxies with hundreds of billions of solar masses in them, each one of them with a supermassive black hole at the center. And we really don't know, what is the process by which those supermassive black holes and the galaxies around them are forming and evolving, and how are they interacting with each other or driving each other's evolution? We don't know yet. That's that peering back into the first earliest galaxies. Those are the kind of questions we want to answer. So I think just seeing the hundreds of scientists that have these questions about what's next for our field, being able to have that data in hand and sifting through it, we're going to see all kinds of amazing science coming down.
Wonderful.
I'm not sure I answered the exact question, but I'm very excited for all of the exoplanets and extragalactic science.
I was going to say, well, there's a lot of that lined up for the cycle 1. There's also I think it's about 17% is dedicated to solar system, which is actually a whole lot. So yeah, it's going to be doing a lot of solar system work. Let's see, we had another... Kike observes that if something goes wrong, then we are definitely living in a simulation. Yeah, there you go. Someone was just trying to mess with us if it goes wrong, because otherwise it has to go right? There's nothing that could possibly go wrong. We had another one. Let's see. Well, actually, we had a few super chats. I just want to thank you guys so much for this. But it's funny when I'm with the software that I'm using, and I'm sorry to be a poor. They say it's a poor craftsman who blames his tools, but I'm trying to mark these questions, and when I go to find my marked questions, it's not there, and I don't know what's going on there. So, but ABCDEF, ABCDEL, I get it. Oh, thank you very much for the super chat. Appreciate that. Let's see. We had another one. Oh yeah. So Emmy Dunk points out that thank you very much for that super chat, Emmy Dunk. We have ELT telescope coming soon. Can Webb and ELT work together somehow? Sure. Absolutely. In fact, that's one of the reasons we do build these large telescopes both on the ground and in space, because each have capabilities the other does not. So yeah, Webb will work with ELT, Webb will work with the Giant Magellan Telescope, Webb will work with Hubble while it's still around. So yeah, there are going to be some joint observation campaigns. Well, sometimes they'll be done pseudo simultaneously. Oftentimes the way this works is that, Webb might find or stumble into something very interesting, and okay, we don't have time to go and really drill in on that, but maybe we can get time on these other telescopes. And so these observatories really do complement each other, and they're each able to do something the other one can't. That's why there is no such thing as a perfect telescope. There are only perfect telescopes. So yeah, that's great.
I think in particular, when you're talking about a telescope like Webb that's going to go after a region of the electromagnetic spectrum that cannot be observed from the ground, no matter how large your telescope is, because of the atmosphere, then you really open up a new window for the telescopes to work together, because you are able to look at different parts of a system in the infrared than you can see in the visible. And we know that many systems are variable, so they don't look the same today as they looked yesterday. Particular things like an active galaxy that has an active supermassive black hole at the center, they vary on all kinds of timescales, centuries-long timescales, years timescales, days. So you're looking at a different part of an active galaxy when you're looking at it in one part of the spectrum, the visible, say, versus the infrared. So we do see a growing number of programs of the most capable observatories on their own working together to give us an even broader picture of what's going on there. And ultimately we want to understand the environments of supermassive black holes. So I think you'll see many proposals coming in to use the next generation of ground-based and space-based observatories together.
Absolutely. And this is a question from Raj, asked about the observable universe is 93 billion light years in diameter. How much more will JWST increase that length? Oh, that's interesting.
Unfortunately, it won't be able to increase the distance that we can see. The farthest that we can see in space is the cosmic microwave background radiation, which is light that was released when the universe was about 400,000 years old. And that was like the first time that the universe became transparent and light was able to actually move about the universe. And that light is everywhere and very loud. And so it is picked up by many instruments that are able to see. In fact, if you turn on your television to just a static, some of the static that's on your television is this cosmic microwave background radiation. It's just that as you get farther and farther away from the Earth, you can't see things with clarity. And what James Webb is going to do is be able to fill in that gap from the, say, 5 billion light years to right to the very edge of the observable universe. It's going to be able to bring new clarity and resolution. So it unfortunately won't be able to see any farther. We already can make the farthest possible observation. It'll just be able to see the stuff that's farthest away the best.
Excellent. Just something that there's a few questions that are coming in, and I don't mean to digress away from the science, but I think the number one question that I've been getting now for days, apart from how long will JWST take to deploy, what will it see, the question that I always get asked is, where can I get this pin? That's what everybody wants to know. So I've got a special connection to an online store. It's an internet connection. It's called realnasagear.com. You can go there. You can get the pin. There's another really cool website I want to tell you about. It's called sciencesocks.co. You can get beautiful jewelry. You can get earrings. You can get these. I don't wear earrings, but sciencesocks.co has like necklaces. They got pins. They got jewelry. They got all kinds of stuff. Check out sciencesocks.co. Now, they're not paying me to say that. I just said it because they just did some great work. I've got a beautiful JWST ornament hanging on my Christmas tree upstairs, so I just wanted to give them a big shout out for just the wonderful work that they do. Let's see.
Christian, I've got a roll in just a couple of minutes.
Okay,
so I've got a team of writers. We got to get to work on reporting the.
It's Christmas Day. What is it?
On.
Yeah, you're
right.
right.
James Webb. Yeah,
there was something to talk about. Yeah,
we didn't get to choose when this mission was going to launch.
I understand. I understand. Hey, Fraser, thank you very much. A very Merry Christmas to you, my friend. And I hope we'll talk again soon.
Absolutely.
Because this was so much fun.
Yeah, congratulations nice to meet you too. Congratulations to everyone on the James Webb team, and I'm really looking forward to all of the science that's going to be flowing our way. It's going to be a wonderful decade.
All right. Fraser, my friend,
take
later. Care. There he goes. And Patty,
bye-bye.
just hang on for a second. I've got you on here.
Yeah.
Okay, so there you are, and here I am. So we're just hanging out, chatting, and believe me, if you need to get going, I understand. There's no formal cutoff time for this, but I'm just having a lot of fun here. Okay.
I can stay. I mean, I think it would be fun to stay through the post-launch press briefing.
Yeah, I think great. If you're up for that, I'm down for that as well. And this is really good, Patty, because I always wanted to have you as a guest on my show, and now I have you as a guest on my show. So this is actually working out really well for me.
Same here, Christian.
Oh, and for everybody in the world, I think, because this is so freaking cool.
So freaking cool. Yeah, what a special day to have such a perfect launch.
I know. So video game controller revolves into a muscle. I have no idea what you're talking about, man, but thank you so much for the super chat. We appreciate it. So let's see. I'm going to just scroll through here, try to find a few more questions. Once I can find it. But anyway, well, actually, I mean, there's like a bajillion questions. So how come we transfer the infrared light into visible light? Or maybe it's how can we transfer the infrared light into visible light? So Patty, why are we looking at infrared and not visible, or can it see any visible at all?
How can we transfer the infrared light into visible light?
I think they're asking. I think so. Yeah, go ahead.
I guess so I guess one way of answering that question, I'm trying to interpret the question. I think what they're asking is if we're looking in the infrared, how are we seeing it?
Okay.
And so it's,
thank you.
So we're collecting photons in a specific part of the spectrum, the mid-infrared or the near-infrared, and then we can take those photons and turn them into an image in the visible that our eyes can see. So we just do that by, the images that come down will be like each photon is tagged with its energy, and you can color them based on their energy so that we can actually look at the images in a part of the spectrum that our eyes see. How can we transfer the infrared light? I guess if the other question were, what can we say about the object if we see the infrared light? What does that tell us about what's going on in the visible?
That's another way I think we could think about it. I mean, I think though your interpretation is the best one, because like how can we turn these infrared images into images that we can see? And it really all comes down to what you just said. We're going to basically eyedropper some colors from the visible spectrum over to the we're going to eyedrop some colors from the visible spectrum into the infrared spectrum to produce images that our eyes see.
Right.
Yeah.
We do the same thing with X-ray telescopes.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So let's see. A generous super chat from Surrogacy. Let me try to bring this up here. And I apologize. Fraser had a split before I could get to your question. But I disagree a bit with Fraser. We have a theory that says we cannot see behind these borders of the visible universe. I think you're referring to the cosmic microwave background. If JWST will have a look over there, it means we will have a new theory. Well, I mean, sure. If it finds objects that have higher redshift than the CMB, that would definitely throw our current understanding of the universe's evolution on its head, wouldn't it?
I'm not sure I actually understand that question, unless it's talking about, the fact that our universe has a boundary beyond which we can't observe. That doesn't mean that there are, like, the multiverse, perhaps, theory that,
right.
There could be, but I don't know.
Bengata, thank you so much for the super chat. Is there a possibility of JWST colliding with any objects in space?
Yeah. So there's a lot of stuff there so L2 is actually one of the more safe, stable Lagrange points. So material that gets near there it doesn't stay stable. It will wander away. That's why James Webb has to do station keeping. So that makes it a little safer than, say, we're like at L4 or L5, where things do collect into those stable points. However, space debris is a growing concern. Space is a big place. So, there's a lot more space than there is stuff that is sitting in space. However, we're launching stuff into space all the time. And it stays up there. If it's got enough energy, it will stay in orbit. There's a large and growing contingent of folks that are tracking space debris. And not many times, but it's not unusual for a spacecraft to know that something is coming nearby and to do something called a collision avoidance maneuver, put itself into a safe space, and, keep tracking that. And almost all the time, those things are, they're close approaches. But still, you can never be too careful if you know something is going to be coming nearby. So there's lots and lots of tracking that will happen. And I'm sure there were people on the ground that were doing some calculations for that, even for the launch today.
Yeah, and you're right. I mean, some spacecraft are capable of sensing their environment. Webb, as far as I know, doesn't have any radar. That right. But one thing that Webb does have, believe it or not, for all of its complexity and fragility, Webb has a lot of what's called margin in it. I mean, basically, the engineers have built the living daylights out of this thing, so that it can withstand some damage. It can actually withstand the mirrors can withstand some micrometeorite damage, and it'll still make images. Will those images be as good as they were with a pristine mirror? No, but it's okay. It can still degrade, and they can still achieve science goals with some chipped mirrors here and there. Even the sun shields, which are extremely critical. When one of them takes a shot, there are ripstops in there so that it doesn't just completely tear open, because the sun shield's is going to be held open under tension. So when something punches through, no problem. It'll just stop, and it won't keep ripping and tearing itself apart. And I'm having a hard time keeping up with these questions, but thank you so much. Richard asked, when is the next critical deployment milestone today? I think the high gain antenna deploy, if that hasn't happened already, would be the next one. So it looks like they're going to do their post. It looks like they're doing their post launch briefing. Yep. Let's go ahead and bring that up. Let's listen in.
I have a feeling they'll answer that question.
Okay.
Do you have audio, Christian?
Yeah. You and I have audio. We can chat. I mean, we're chatting live, but... Oh,
right.
We will go ahead
and
turn over to our first speaker, Joseph.
There we go.
Thank you.
So thank you. This was such a great moment on Christmas Day, and I think everyone has been excited with us. The whole world has been watching this, and I'm very happy to say that Team Europe has delivered, and I'm very happy to also say that we have delivered the spacecraft very precisely into orbit in terms of altitude, speed, inclination. So this means that the release of the spacecraft was very accurate.
All right, that
I'm very
feeds
happy
video
that
has
Ariane
gotten
5
really
was
funky,
performing extremely well, which also means that there's a lot
of
time ahead for good science, because good orbit injection allows to have more fuel on board of the spacecraft, and therefore the James Webb Space Telescope can have a long life and therefore bring a lot of exciting science. So really exciting today. Thank you to our partners. Thank you to NASA for the trust. Thank you to our European partners. Fascinating moment.
Thank you so much, Joseph. Let's hear now from Philippe Baptiste.
Thank you very much. Just a word to say that I'm so proud today for many reasons. First of all, we have a successful launch, which is great news for everybody. I must say that I'm very proud also of Ariane 5. So Ariane 5 is a rocket that has been designed quite some years ago, but by CNES, and once again it shows really that it is really efficient and very, very, very reliable. So it's very good news again. And finally, I'm just also very proud of all what has been done here at CESG, so le Centre Spatial Guyanais, so the European spaceport, where all activities have been conducted to prepare the launch, where 500 people have spent their Christmas Eve on preparing the launch, and everything was successful. And I can tell you that there was quite a lot of emotion when we succeeded on the mission. So, and now just to say also that finally I'm also proud because CNES and France is also part of the mission for ESA, and we have also been working quite a lot on the James Webb itself. And as everybody in the room, I'm looking forward to the success of the mission and to the first data coming from Webb within some months. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, Philippe. And now we'll go to Gregory Robinson.
I'm not sure how much time I have because I have so much to say. Certainly an amazing liftoff. We're on our journey thanks to this tremendous partnership. I say the world gave us this telescope, and we're handing it back to the world today. And we don't take that for granted with all the support across the globe for this. Certainly want to thank the leadership up here. And I'm going to sound like the Academy Awards. I just want to acknowledge just 2 or 3 other people at the next level down. Certainly Bill Oakes, project manager from the Goddard Space Flight Center, leading the telescope observatory side.
Uh-oh.
Okay. All right, we've had an anomaly. Let's see if we can't troubleshoot that. Make sure it's nothing going on my end.
I've got a NASA live feed on my phone, and I can still see Greg Robertson speaking.
Okay. I think I'll have it back up here momentarily. Okay, so their public feed is working. So let me go ahead and bring that up instead.
I think we agreed on that about 2 years ago, right before COVID, actually, for the solar orbiter launched down at Kennedy. And none of us expected to see the solar rays deploy.
There we go.
Solar array, I keep thinking too. So thanks for that, and hopefully the whole world enjoyed that. Lastly,
yeah, was that an anomaly?
We already have the greatest gift of all on this day, and so now we have another gift. And lastly, for the team, some of our team has been down here since September. They've hung in there, thought they would make it home for Christmas, including yours truly, but we're certainly home for Christmas in spirit and physically very soon. Thank you.
Thank you, Greg. And now I head to San Israel.
Yes, good morning or good afternoon, everybody. I want first to confirm what Joseph has said. Ariane 5 and Arianespace have perfectly delivered for this mission. All the parameters of the flight are excellent and perfect as scheduled. I must also say that the chronology leading to the liftoff has been totally smooth with no issue from time to time. We have to solve real time some issues to make it happen, but this chronology was absolutely perfect. So there is nothing more to say that all this journey has started the best way it could start. And now we hand over to NASA for the next steps, and we are going really to follow the amazing journey of Webb. I want really to thank NASA for the partnership we have built over years. This partnership has started 20 years ago. A few years ago, I saw Thomas, and Thomas told me, hey, we are going to work together. It may take some time. And maybe I was not totally realizing what we were about to do together. And now I know what we have done together. I want to thank Isa for sure for our partnership, and CNES. You know that we work all together in the Guyana Space Center, and that Ariane 5 is a success of CNES as a design authority, ISA as maître d'ouvrage, and Ariane Group as maître d'œuvre. So it's really the Team Europe. I want also to say, because you spoke about the lady in charge of this flight, Beatriz Romero, she's Spanish. The guy who was in charge of the operation in the centre de lancement is a Klaus Sell, he's a German. So it's a real European success today, and this is what I want to celebrate as well.
Thank you very much, Stefan. And lastly, we'll go to Thomas Zurbuchen, NASA's Associate Administrator for Science.
So what an amazing day. It's truly Christmas with all the presents and everything. And we have a space mission. That's just an amazing milestone. I don't know how you think. I think in pictures. And for me, there were two pictures today that I will not forget. The first one, of course, is that amazing light lifting off the ground. Whenever I see a rocket kind of defying gravity, you just realize how important that is, kind of punching a hole in the sky. And kind of leaving the bounds here just talks about the spirit that exploration really has, that lifts us up and brings us forward together as one. And so that picture will be with me. The other picture is just as important. It's the picture you talked about, Greg, and really talks about the new beginning that this space mission now is. And of course, the picture I'm talking about is the picture with the Earth in the background, with the dark sky and a telescope leaving the upper stage. For me, that picture will be burned into my mind forever. What an amazing Christmas present. Thanks to all. I'm not going to repeat what has been said. I'm going to kick it back over to you.
Thank you, Thomas. And with that, we'll go ahead and begin taking questions from press. So we can start if we have questions from any of the media who are in the room, and then we will go to some of the reporters who we have dialed in online. And I just ask that when you ask your question, you please note who you're directing that question to, if possible. So go ahead, Frederic.
Frédéric Castel, France 24. To the NASA representative, please, can you tell us your feeling of relief after this successful launch? And do you have any feeling or worries about the weeks ahead now that the ball is in your area, in your zone? Thank you.
I'm going to start the answer, and then I'm going to give it over to Greg, because he is so even more deeply involved than I am. You know, the way I think about this, of achieving these big goals, like deploying a telescope and doing work up there is really like a big mountain hike. And so we're way out of the valley now. We're out there, but there's still a lot of path ahead of us. It's a lot less risk today than it was yesterday, because all risks have already worked. So the number is smaller. And so as we go forward in the next hours and then days, just the way we've said, we're going to take step by step the path forward that we're now on. And we couldn't be more excited. I'm, of course, relieved. On the one hand, I'm excited going forward. I still feel a little bit of pressure, just because the task that's ahead of us is in no way simpler than it was yesterday when we had the same discussion. Greg.
So there's always some engineering anxiety, but no worries. We have a really good team. We design, manufacture, test to make sure that we're successful. NASA flies many missions, and extremely high percentile they work. And we use the same best practices for all of these. Now, of course, we needed some extra touch here because due to complexity, but no worries. Echo what Thomas said. Over the next several days, we're going to have a lot of fun getting this thing deployed and continuing that commissioning process.
Okay. Okay, do we, question in the room.
Simon Rosé from Radio France International. A question to Stéphane. We know the importance of a good injection to save fuel for Webb's and then increase its lifespan. Well, how good was the injection? How perfect was it?
Well, let's wait for final data, but what we know now is that the injection was really perfect, and that, yes, it will help to have more lifespan for Webb, definitely. We will, we make our final launch review. Usually we do it a few hours after the launch, and we will do that a bit later on, and we will have more data in the afternoon. But it was perfect.
Do we have any other questions from those in the room?
Pierre Célérier, AFP. Question for Mr. Zurbuchen. What is the next critical step for Webb on its way to L2? Oh, yes, Mr. Robinson.
I can answer, but he is the specialist.
So liftoff plus 12 hours, we have to do a critical burn to make sure we're still in the right trajectory to L2. So that's somewhat time sensitive. And then a couple of days, day 3, we actually start the big deployments. And the timeline is posted online, so you can get to it. We have some generic ones that look at the 3 phases, and then some that are very detailed, almost hourly.
All right. If we don't have anyone else in the room, then we can go ahead and take some questions from our reporters who are dialed in online. So I'd like to ask the operator to please provide those instructions for reporters to ask a question. Operator? And do we have the operator on the line for media questions from the phone? All right. It sounds like we might have some technical difficulties with the phone line. So I'll do another ask if we have any further questions from reporters here in the room while they work on that on the telephone. Oh, thank you.
Yeah. What are the prospects for? Okay.
I do hear the operator. We can go ahead and take your question if you'd like, and then move to the operator in a moment.
To the solar array deployment and the general timeline of all the other deployments that have happened so far. Did any happen earlier than planned or expected? And just generally, how did it all work out? Thanks.
So I think we might have missed the beginning of that question. If you can repeat that, but I think the question was generally about throughout the deployments, if any of those might happen earlier than sort of nominally scheduled. But if you can repeat that question on the line just to make sure we have that right.
So if that was the intent of the question, after the burn, we have a lot of flexibility in how we continue commissioning the deployments. But if everything is nominal, we will most likely follow that nominal timeline.
Thank you, Greg. We can give that another try. Do we have another question from the phone line? And it doesn't sound like we do at the moment, so if we'd like to go ahead back to our question here from the audience.
Thank you, Chris.
How does today's launch bode for the future cooperation between ESA and CSA and NASA?
Our next question is from Reuters.
Yeah, hi. I just wanted to ask anybody there, throw this one out to anyone there. What is is there a particular target that you are especially excited about pointing the telescope at when it first becomes operational for science exploration?
I'm going to answer that. Thomas here. Look, there's many national secrets that are not guarded with more vigor than the question that you're at, the answer to the question that we're giving. So we're actually really want to make sure as we target those, we give you that. I can tell you in general that what we will do is look at specific targets that will really demonstrate the capability of this, looking both at exoplanets but also at specific cosmic targets that we think will really reveal new science really quite quickly without really integrating for many, many weeks and months, which of course will also happen in some other targets. So it will be kind of a potpourri of science as opposed to just a single measurement. And
Alice, there was a question here on the cooperation. Yes.
The ESA NASA cooperation, I'm just going to start. I'm going to immediately kick it over to you. You should know that as far as NASA is concerned, ESA is one of our best partners, the best partner overall in terms of just sheer magnitude of cooperation. Many of our strategic programs that we're conceiving now, including Mars sample return, including Artemis, including Earth science, observations of the most beautiful planet we know, our own, are done together with ESA. The 2 days here have done what that has done for all of us. It has increased the depth of friendship. That, of course, is the foundation of these type of collaborations. Joseph.
No, thank you, Thomas, and I can only reaffirm what Thomas was saying. The partnership is strong, is extremely strong. We have many examples where we work extremely well together. Artemis coming up next, but also many other domains where we have hardware cooperation, but also cooperation on the science part. And I'm not going to repeat what Thomas was saying. But let me also say that when I took over the position as DG of ESA on the 1st of March, very soon I was meeting the Administrator Bill Nelson, and I was really reassuring him of reinforcing or even further strengthening the partnership which we have. We have certainly a good cooperation, but I'm very committed on my side to be a trusted partner, to be a good partner to NASA on many projects to follow, from Artemis to Mars sample return to many other domains where we already work together and where we have plans to work together. So certainly NASA can rely on ESA as a strong partner, and if I say ESA, that is with my member states. We are working very strongly on numerous projects to come, and I'm really looking forward to that. And today is really proof of a highlight of this cooperation, which is quite fascinating.
Wonderful, thank you. And Philippe, is that one that you'd like to weigh in on a little more broadly about French and CNES cooperation with the United States as well?
Yeah, I think that first of course, because we have in which we do participate. We also have some direct bilateral collaboration between CNES and NASA, very successful. I think that we were on all the missions to Mars. CNES was there, and of course this is very good cooperation, very good scientific cooperation, and of course it's highly visible, and all our citizens pay a lot of attention to it. So of course we are very happy to continue this kind of collaboration, both through ESA and also some kind of bilateral collaboration. Some new ones will come very short, I think.
Just to say a word, we have mentioned the Mars sample return. Mars sample return has opened the space year, and we were all following Perseverance on Mars, and now we close this same space year with Webb, and by the way, what a year, because, and we have Thomas Pesquet in the middle, but clearly for Mars sample return, it is an Ariane 6, which will, in 2026, from the Guyana Space Center, lift off to bring the vehicle, which will have the rendezvous with the one who will have the Mars sample, and which will take them back in 2031 on Earth. So at least we have this next step between Europe and the United States, and we would like also to make a lunar mission with Ariane 6, a lander mission, which could be the contribution of Europe. So on our side, we really hope that we will go on delivering in this partnership, which is delivering a lot of value for all the space community.
Thank you very much. And we'll go back to take another question from the phone lines. We do have a little bit of lag or some latency, so we'll take a question.
Our next question is from Discovery Channel.
Sorry about that. David Curley here. We're having some technical difficulties on this call. We're not hearing everything, but the Q&A seems to be going a little better. Dr. Zabertson, You said you are relieved, which is not surprising for the launch, but there is quite a bit of work to be done with the unfolding and everything. Robinson talked about the single-point failures the other day, and you might be able to deal with about a third of them potentially failing, if I understood correctly. Where it was before launch and where you are right now?
Well, look, what happened today is absolutely necessary for a successful mission. Absolutely necessary. Without it, everything else has no purpose to talk about. It's not sufficient. So where we are, on a risk perspective, I don't know. I mean, frankly, we argue about this. I'm going to give my answer, then I'm going to ask Greg. And so often you're going to notice we may not 100% on our perceptions agree. You already noticed that, right? And that's what makes us strong, by the way. We believe in different approaches in our teams, and working together makes us even better. But, the way I think about it is, generally speaking, the launch is of the order 80% of the risk in a mission. I would say, kind of by our analysis, but kind of by various ways of assessing that, here it may be 20% of the risk of the mission, perhaps 30. I don't know. And so basically, what is ahead? We have retired quite some risk, but what is ahead remains a risk that we're going to take down step by step. Greg, how would you answer?
So Thomas, surprisingly, I will not disagree with you this time. So we've talked a lot about the complexity and the risks. We just let the team execute. We fly many missions with single point failures. We fly everything without redundancy. Structure is the one we always point to, but that's kind of obvious. So this is no different. We followed all the best practices. So I have no real concerns other than just the technical complexity itself.
All right, can we take another question from the phone lines? And we'll pause a moment to let that come through. All right, thank you. We have no more questions on the phone. Do we have an additional question in the room? I thought I saw a hand up. Oh, go ahead, Marina.
Hi, Marina Korn with The Atlantic. I think maybe Greg, you already answered this question, but sorry for the repeat. So it sounds like the solar array deployed earlier than expected. Why do you think that happened? And is the team now going to be making any adjustments to their expectations for how the rest of the deployment might go based on just what you've seen so far? And then second question is, you've had people on the observatory side here since September. Now everyone's going home. Who will be the last person from your team to leave Kourou?
Our next question.
So, sometimes we answer these with a little humor, so I'm going to try not. I certainly hope not to be the last one to leave. Most of the team will actually get out of here today and tomorrow. We will have a few people leaving on the 28th. And as far as at the Institute, we have a strong team there, again, international team, to get this thing done. So it's in their hands now, and I think we're on our way. So as far as the solar array deploying earlier so when you do go online and you look at all of those timelines, don't hold us to any of them, because these are projected times. And again, after that burn, we do have flexibility. We can always move things around. So please don't call us or write a bad note if something doesn't deploy on the timeline. Just reach out to us. So I don't know the answer to that other than these are projected times.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. And since we had no further questions on the phone, and I don't see any hands raised in the room, I think we've taken all our questions here today. So I want to thank you very much to our group of speakers who joined us, as well as to everyone who followed along with this very exciting launch today. And this is really just the beginning for Webb. So we really encourage you to continue following along throughout its journey as the most powerful, most complex, and biggest space telescope ever built unfolds itself in space. You can do that if you head to web.nasa.gov, where you can see an interactive tracker that will show you where Webb is throughout its deployment timeline. Or you can visit our blog at blogs.nasa.gov/web, and that will direct you to regular news updates about Webb's next steps. So thank you all again for joining us, and go Webb!
And with that, an empty launch pad, well, not empty launch pad astronomy channel, but an empty launch pad where the Ariane 5 and the James Webb Space Telescope sat for just a couple of days before leaving this Earth. Patty, I don't know about you, I am still freaking out of my skull. Just knowing that it's here, it's happened, it's out there doing the thing. They were speaking about a. What do you call it? A timeline, and so I have that right here.
Great.
Just so we can take a look and see together what's going on. So obviously, we had the early deployment. I guess I don't think you can see my cursor. No, it doesn't look it doesn't look it shows the cursor there. But anyway, it looks like right there it says early deployment. Oh, thank you, Elliot. Very kind of you to say. It really is just a wonderful day, isn't it? But you're certainly welcome. It was a pleasure. Anyway, so they did have an early deployment. Why exactly? How exactly that happened? Mr. Robinson himself did not know for sure. So I was hoping to bring up that. But that's okay. Anyway, so that was a nice surprise. And you know what? We'll just take it, because the sooner you get power, the sooner you have a mission. And that's just wonderful stuff. Let's
But also how fantastic to see it, like actually to have the camera
that was
viewing
so cool.
it unfold, right? So I don't think that anyone was really expecting to see that moment. And yeah, like we're all on pins and needles trying to dissect the timeline. But looking at it from another perspective, we got to watch something amazing happen. And the view, like Zurbuchen was stating it, you've got this bright, shining spacecraft, a solar array deploying, the dark of space, and the view of the Earth. Really quite poetic imagery.
It really was, and you're just just talk about just being gobsmacked with just some incredible. I mean, it's one thing for the launch to go as well as could be expected, but this actually, with that solar array deploy, it went better than expected. I mean, full stop. It went better than expected, and so I'm just closing off the NASA live stream. NASA's ended their coverage, and I think we're going to be winding our coverage down as well. But just to touch up on a couple of questions we were talking about, we had a question up at the very beginning before we cut to this press conference, and that was what would be the next steps in the deployment. And of course, I can't find that chat right there. But do you remember, Patty, that question? Because you said, "Oh, I have an answer for that," or I thought you did. I could be wrong. Do you remember?
I thought were we talking about the first mid-course burn that's going to happen at 12 hours post-launch?
That's probably it. The mid-course burn, and I don't know when the high gain antenna is set to deploy. Oh, by the way, this just in: the sun shield deployed, the mirrors are out, and the telescope's taking data. So
what?
I'm just
awesome.
Kidding. I'm kidding. No, I'm kidding. Oh, of course I kid. I kid with love. No, I know that the high gain antenna is the next deploy, or was going to be the next deploy, because let's face it, second only to power is communication. If you can't talk to the spacecraft. Now, the spacecraft is still communicating. It has all spacecraft have what are called a high gain and low gain antennae. The low gain antenna broadcasts in all directions at once, and that's not a bug. That's a feature, because heaven forbid, should the spacecraft lose orientation and can't maintain a line of sight to Earth, there's always an omnidirectional signal that we can still communicate to the spacecraft with. The trade-off, of course, is that, why am I coming out of focus? Okay, back to focus. The trade-off, of course, is that, you lose the amount of data, or you reduce the rate at which you can communicate with the telescope, how much data we can send back and forth. That's why that high gain antenna is so important. If that's the one that points directly to Earth, it focuses, it beams, it's a tight beam of radio, and that allows us to pack a lot more information into that beam. So we are just, excited to see everything's going so well so far, and I just don't yet know if that has, I think according to the nominal timeline, given that we are now about L plus 2 hours,
wow.
I think it had, yeah, I know, it's gone by so quick, but I believe it has, in fact, or should have, I guess, should have deployed that high gain antenna. There were just millions of questions, but go ahead, Patty.
So one of the questions that came up was about the TRAPPIST system.
Yeah.
Do we want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure, absolutely, Patty.
Okay, so just a little bit of background about TRAPPIST. It is a nearby exoplanet system, and it has 7 small planets, and we can see 7 of them transiting the host star. And it's a very small system compared to our solar system. You could pack it into basically the orbit of Jupiter and the Galilean satellites. It's that small, well inside of the orbit of Mercury in our own solar system. And the star is really small. It's maybe 10% or a little bit more the size of our star. And the planets are about Earth size. They are very Earth-like planets compared to like the potpourri of planets out there. And the fact that they are on these short orbits means that they transit often, and sometimes they transit 2 at a time, more than one passing in front of the face of this really small star. And so all of these features about it, the fact that it has small rocky planets that are similar to Earth, Venus type planets, the fact that it's around a really small star compared to the sun, so it's not as bright, and a transit of an Earth around a small star is bigger to see by comparison. These make it a great system to observe. And so it is going to be observed by multiple teams, including some of the teams that have guaranteed time observations, to look at, either separate planets in that system or to look at a collection of them and to try to determine whether we can tease out features of that place, the place that the planet is, to determine if it has, number one, an atmosphere. Because that's a huge question, is like, the atmosphere of Earth is conducive to life. We see planets out there that are Earth size and a little bit bigger, but do they have atmospheres? Number one. And the star that TRAPPIST is around is a very active star. It's called an M dwarf, and they give off huge super flares. So it could be that even if they are in a nice habitable zone area, so that they're in a place near the star where water could exist as gas and liquid water and ice, just like on Earth. It could be that the star just blows away any chance of habitability. These are all just theories. We don't know yet. We're
right.
So excited to be able to start to interrogate these planets as places. And do they have atmospheres? Number one question. If so, what are they like? Is it a water vapor atmosphere? Is there nitrogen in it? Is something else other than water vapor? So those are the kinds of questions that will be asked and answered during that first year of observation. So multiple teams going after the TRAPPIST planets, many, many hours in the first year. Just like one program in particular has 22 hours of observations just on one of those planets in the TRAPPIST system.
Just one of the 7 planets of the system. Wow. I take it, is it fair to guess that it's probably one of the ones that's in the habitable zone?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's incredible.
So 3 of those 7 planets are in the habitable zone. That's again amazing.
I know. It's like can you imagine what the sky must be like from the surface of one of these planets? I mean, these planets would be so bright in the sky. I mean, they're right there.
And close enough to each other that they could, if there was like a sentient life form on one of these planets and they had developed like Apollo-like technology, They could be traveling to the next planet at about the same, intensity that we were traveling to the moon 50 years ago. So it would be like just a completely different place.
It would only take days to get to these other worlds. I mean, that is incredible. Wow.
And it's just like a candy store of an exoplanet system to have been given to us. It's nearby. It's got many, many small planets. And the star it's around is small enough that it's those planets are tractable with telescopes. So it could be, like we were talking about earlier, that the time that Webb is going to spend on any given target is driven by proposal pressure.
Yeah.
So people writing proposals. But I wouldn't be surprised if we didn't see in, say, the next couple of years what we would call like a legacy program. The community coming together and writing proposal after proposal so that we can really go after the features in the TRAPPIST system. Because going after these spectra, it takes time. Even though it's a big telescope, in order for you to get the signal to noise, the clarity that you want to be able to see these features, you really have to keep observing again and again. So I'm expecting TRAPPIST will be one of those touchstone systems for Webb.
Right, they'll just keep revisiting it.
Year one.
Yeah, they'll just keep revisiting it as they learn a little bit more about it, and they'll realize, oh yeah, there's an observation that we didn't make the last time that we could really learn a lot about. Like let's take a spectrum in this wavelength band or in this mode or something that we just hadn't think to do before, and that's great. That's perfectly legitimate. I mean, when the Hubble Space Telescope has revisited the same targets over and over again, and one of the conscious things that you have to be very careful of is you don't try to duplicate anything. You don't try to duplicate observations because time is very precious. And so revisiting a target, it doesn't necessarily result in a duplication if you can observe it in a way that you didn't do it before. And if in this case Hubble or now Webb are the only instruments that can make these follow-up observations. So yeah. So the another question that we had, and I realize I'm not going to have time to get to all these questions today, everybody, which is just a wonderful problem to have. But well, I think we did talk about this before. But what are the critical parts that limit JWST to 10 years? Is we did talk about the possibility of refueling it, but basically, yeah, it's fuel limited. That orbit that it's making around the L2 point, it's not perfectly stable, right? Like, you have to kind of stay in that orbit from time to time.
Station keeping, it's called.
Station keeping, exactly right. So Webb is, and think about how Webb is constructed, by the way. It's a great big flat thing, right? So the sun is exerting solar radiation pressure on the spacecraft. Now, if the spacecraft's trying to look off in this direction, or I should say look off, it points parallel to its sun shield. But anyway, if it's trying to look in one direction and the sunlight is pushing on it, it can use its reaction wheels to kind of counteract the solar radiation pressure, but eventually those reaction wheels are going to keep spinning and spinning and spinning and spinning, and finally they're going to reach their maximum RPM. And this is called saturation. The reaction wheels cannot spin the telescope any further because of radiation pressure starting to win. Now it has to burn some fuel. Now it has to do a burn to push back against and reorient the telescope. So that fuel will be consumed, and the rate at which it's consumed depends on a number of factors. But one thing that I can say, and again, I don't want to make this, I'm not going to put Patty on the spot here and make her say this because, NASA doesn't have a crystal ball any more than I do, right? But if they manage their fuel well, and if they get really good at flying this thing and operating it, and this is the thing, it's like any aircraft, right? You fly it, you got to see how it handles before you start doing the really cool maneuvers. You got to really get an understanding just what the aircraft's going to do. Same thing with the spacecraft. You got to understand exactly how it's going to behave in the real world. And so as they operate Webb, they're going to be learning so much more about it, learning how to control its orientation and attitude, using its momentum flaps and maybe changing its yaw and position and doing slight corrections without burning fuel. They could potentially extend their lifespan well beyond the 10-year limit. So, how long that will be, I don't know. Nobody does. But how long has Hubble been around?
the fuel that will be used in that mid-course correction burn is really critical, right?
Yeah.
Because the station keeping around L2 requires far less fuel than that one burn is going to take up.
Yeah.
So a lot of it will depend on just how well that burn goes. That's what we'll have left on the spacecraft for the rest of its life. But you're absolutely right as far as that analogy of, like, you know, checking the airplane out and getting the feel. That's true for every one of these space observatories. You get what you get. You know, we do all the simulations and the preparations and the rehearsals on the ground with, like, what we're expecting from the observatory in space. But when you get out into space, that's when the, you know, parameters of what you've got are set. And so the team will be learning in real time, how is the observatory working, you know, where its strengths and weaknesses. And it's in every case that I'm aware of, a mission team has been surprised by some things. Some things go a little better than you were expecting them to. They operate better. In other cases, it's not quite what you were expecting. And you just learn to manage that. You learn to manage that to get the mission as good as it can be when it's in space. So I'm really excited to see, you know, what the reality is going to turn out to be compared to our expectations.
Absolutely. Let's see if I can find an image of this L2 orbit. So it says orbit around L2. And just to give us some perspectives on what we're talking about here, so we're talking about 1.5 million kilometers from the moon's beyond, you know, from Earth, whereas the moon is just shy of 400,000 kilometers. And so what this does is it looks like this, right? So let's go ahead and bring this up here, and you could see
great
here's
animation.
Yeah, I love this animation. So here's Earth's orbit, and now we've got Webb executing its orbit around this L2 position. So there's nothing physical there, right? It's a point in space where the gravitational forces with the Earth from the Earth and Sun both conspire to to keep that point in space moving at the same rate around the Sun as Earth. Because if you think about it, the farther away the planets are from the Sun, the slower they orbit. Not at L2. You're getting an extra little grab from Earth's gravity. So you get to follow Earth around in its orbit, even though you're slightly farther away. And that's where we get this wonderful orbit. And the great thing about it is that it's a natural place to stick a telescope. You know, you're away from all the thermal environment of Earth and the moon, and you're just staying chill. You know, so
exactly. Yep.
Yeah,
it's all
that
about
is so
staying
cool.
chill.
So anyway, so let's see. We have a couple. I know we got like a bajillion other questions, but you know, this. I think right now we are really just waiting on those next critical deployments. Yep, I agree with you, Jared. Let's go. Can't wait to see those images. We're gonna have to be patient. You know, we've got a long 6 months ahead of us. I think though that of those 6 months, and yeah, Edge makes a good point. Yeah, NASA's stretched many missions out well past their warranty date, right? So
Look at
yeah,
Hubble, 31 years and going.
exactly. Yeah,
It'll be 32 years in April.
Yeah, and Green, I think he's referred to Jim Green, said it could possibly last for 15 years. Yeah, I think it's entirely possible. I mean, I wouldn't expect it not to, I should say. But at the same time, I won't be disappointed if it doesn't. You know what I mean? It's like, well, I mean, I'll be disappointed. Of course, I'll be disappointed. I'm going to be disappointed when Hubble, departs. But I think the fact that we've got something that can last at least this long is pretty remarkable, despite having... Yeah, go ahead, Patty.
Yeah, Hubble is such a great example, right? Because it's it's a great observatory like Webb. It's quite complex. It has, 4 operating instruments, fine guidance sensors, onboard computer, gyroscopes, and, any failure can impact the mission lifetime. So there's actually a team of engineers and scientists who take a look at lifetime extension initiatives on Hubble. They've been doing it for like the last 10 years or more. How do we operate the observatory in such a way that we're being, good stewards of everything, that we were going to be able to squeeze every last bit of science and lifetime out of Hubble. And that's been incredibly successful. The fact that the observatory is operating, 12 years past the last servicing mission, when the astronauts serviced it, that's just beyond expectations. And we expect it's going to work in tandem with Webb now for a few years. And I'm imagining that there will be a similar team getting to work, pretty soon about lifetime extension initiatives for Webb. It's never too early to start thinking about it.
Absolutely, yeah. And so to your question, about what Willie thinks, as Patty was saying, Hubble had a nominal, Hubble had a minimum 5-year mission. It's always 5 years. Then it was expected for 10. Then it was expected for 20. And then it was thought maybe 25. And it's still here. Almost 32 years on, it's still here. That's just amazing. Yeah. Let's see. So, couldn't there be a high temp mission where it may not be as cold but still do some science? Well, actually, the good news is that Webb is largely passively cooled. So as long as its sun shield is oriented toward the sun, now realistically, sure, if you run out of propellant and so forth, then now you're going to warm up. So Patty, what do you think?
Well, I think it's a cool idea. And, there is an example of that. Spitzer was an infrared mission, and it was designed to take observations in a certain temperature regime for similar reasons as Webb. But when it went beyond the period where it could be cooled, it warmed up, and there was some science that you could do with Spitzer. It was called the Spitzer Warm Mission. And in particular, one of the types of observations you could do were exoplanet and transit exoplanet observations. So some of the coolest early exoplanet observations were done with Spitzer when it was in a warm mode, so operating beyond where it was, in its ideal temperature range. So that's a great example of a mission that was, pushed beyond what it was expected to do.
And it's also to say that even when Spitzer went into its warm mission, I mean, warm is very relative. It's still extremely cold compared to you and me, but it was just cold enough to still be able to do some infrared, because that's always the challenge. Now, let's use an analogy. If we're trying to look at stars, you'd like to turn the lights off. If you don't turn the lights off, you are going to have a hard time seeing very faint stars, but you can still see the not so faint stars, right? You can still see, and as the lights get brighter, you can still see the brightest stars. So I mean, Webb could extend into that mode where, it's no longer able to maintain the ultra cryogenic temperatures it has to have, but it could still continue to do some science. A question was asked earlier, and I don't have it queued up here, but was there any ability for Webb to see in the visible part of the spectrum? And the answer is I mean, it does reflect some red light, and some orange light and some yellow light. In fact, that's why the mirrors are gold, because they're reflecting a mixture of those wavelengths of light. So you can see yourself in Webb's mirrors. You don't get a very optimum image. It's not like looking on a silver or an aluminized mirror. But Webb can do some visible light work. I don't know how well its instruments would be optimized to take advantage of that, however.
That's the critical piece, right? So it's more than just the mirror. It's also what is the instrumentation designed for and optimized for. And certainly there are near-infrared bands on Webb. But the instrumentation on board is really meant to take advantage of being able to observe from the near-infrared all the way into the mid-infrared.
Absolutely. So I think we're going to go just for a couple more minutes here, and then we're going to wind this down. It's coming up on 10 a.m. Local time here in the East Coast of the United States, where Patty and I are both located, and we both have families to get to. So we're going to keep chatting with you for a few more minutes. So no web selfies then, right? So there's there was an off-asked question about couldn't Webb have had some cameras on board to let us see the actual configuration of its deployments and so forth. And I know that this was considered and debated, but at the end of the day, one idea would have been to have cameras purely operated by batteries. That way, the batteries will run dead, and the cameras will cool and all that kind of stuff. But you're adding at the end of the day, you're adding two things. You're adding mass, and every gram has to be accounted for. So every bit of extra mass you launch that isn't telescope means there's less telescope that you can launch. The second issue, of course, is complexity. I mean, it was surprisingly complex. Webb is so tightly integrated. Remember, that thing had to fold up to fit into a 5.4 meter fairing. That means you had to make, as far as big as Webb is, you had to make everything as small and compact as possible. And so just even adding cameras and the wiring introduced extra complexity. And at the end of the day, they just decided, you know what? No, this is not worth. And with extra complexity, by the way, means extra risk. So now you're adding risk. What if there's another problem that develops from adding these cameras? So now cameras are not being added. What it is providing, though, is a tremendous amount of telemetry. That is data about itself. Telemetry is that's like our lifeblood. I used to, I don't know, Patty, I worked down at Goddard for a while, and I was actually flying spacecraft, so I got to become all one with telemetry when I was doing spacecraft operations. And yeah, I mean, like, it's amazing how much data gets crammed into that telemetry stream.
About everything, right?
About everything.
About every possible system here. I was just thinking as you were describing the cameras, like, what would we need the cameras for? Because we're going to get a huge amount of telemetry back. Continuously telling us how things are going. So I'm not sure that cameras would necessarily add critical information to that. It'd be nice to see, but we're going to have a huge amount of information about how everything's going from all the telemetry.
Absolutely, a staggering amount. Thank you, Bez. Yeah, this is fun. This is fun, guys. I can't believe we're all hanging out here. I thought it was Christmas. I thought like Christmas morning, everyone's going to be like, screw these guys. I'm going to go open my presents, But no, I mean, you guys are fantastic. But yeah, and as Patty was saying, it is amazing what you can learn from telemetry. Something else to consider is the fact that and Patty, I apologize if I'm just repeating what you just said, but yeah, I mean, how do you the cameras are focused on what? They're pointed at what? Like, I mean, like, how could you put them? Where would you put them? Where, and by the way, oh yeah, you're in the dark. Okay, fine.
Or you're just too close to see, a decent view of what's happening. So.
What would have been nice is if they could have flown like a chase spacecraft along with it, but now you have two spacecraft to operate. No, not gonna work. But yeah, you're right. Maybe human. This is the present. Yeah, absolutely. This really is it. So I wanted to see if there was. Yeah, I definitely want to see if there was another question. Well, I know there's a bunch of questions that we did not get to. Why hasn't been sent already? Well, it is sending data. It is sending telemetry. That is, in fact, what is driving. Let's see. Let's see if I can find it here. That's what's driving this information. This data is actually coming from the spacecraft. It's not like this is not a script or an app that they wrote to just run things along a timeline. No, it's actually telling us the status of things. It hasn't yet come up with any temperatures, so we're still waiting for some temperature data, but that makes sense because the no sun shields have deployed yet.
Yep, I mean, there's all kinds of data coming down now about its environment. But the answer for why it's not sending us science data already is because there's a very intricate series of in-orbit turn-ons and checkouts, and for an observatory this complex going out to 4 times further away than the full moon, it's going to take quite a while for these things to happen. So those science instruments aren't going to be turning on and starting to cool down for quite a while now.
Yeah, agreed.
We're on track. Everything is.
And if you want, we're even ahead of schedule if you want to count that solar array early deployment. So, or actually it deployed when it was supposed to. We just didn't know when it was supposed to deploy. So again, you talk about great problems to have. These are just wonderful, wonderful problems. Webb is in space. Webb is on its way. Yes, the hard part is now about to happen with that deployment. It's going to be pretty intricate, and there's a lot of quote unquote ways it could fail, a lot of single points of failure, but they also have contingencies, and they have contingencies to contingencies. They've got ways of making this work, and I'm increasingly confident that they are going to make it work, come hell or high water.
The huge risk is launch, right? I mean, that is really where the launch just comes to like a singularity almost. It's make or break. And so when you get past all of these potential areas where something bad could happen, when you get past launch, that's just a huge relief. We've retired a lot of risk on this mission.
Yeah, that's a great way of phrasing it. Yeah, a lot of the risk has been retired. I know that sounds a little bit strange, knowing that, it's also at the same time no longer on the ground and can't be serviced and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, but the systems have been built, the plans have been made, and the great thing about this is that all of this has been practiced and practiced and practiced. Those folks down at Space Telescope Science Institute, they have not been twiddling their thumbs and playing solitaire on those computers. They've been going through simulations, and they've gone through virtually every possible failure mode they can think of. It's basically at the point now where it's like when something goes wrong, because let's face it, something will, and that's that happens. It's not going to be like, oh golly, what do we do? It's like, okay, let's find out exactly what went wrong. Oh, that happened. Okay, we're going to execute this play. It's like football.
Absolutely.
It's like, oh, okay, we're third down and 10. Okay, this play. You know what I mean? It's like you just do these things and
very
you just work through it.
Team. Very well prepared team, and a process that has been tried before. Anomalies happen, and we know how to respond.
Absolutely. Well, Patty Boyd, I want to thank you so much for coming on and spending your Christmas morning with me, and I want to thank all of you for joining us as well. First of all, everybody, a big round of applause for Dr. Patty Boyd. Please make sure you show her some love. Make sure you find her on Twitter. Let me see. I think I had her. Yeah, there you go. She's on Twitter at Patty Boyd. Make sure you find her. Yeah, Fraser's gone. So anyway, just Merry Christmas, everyone. This is humanity at its best, and I'm still just delighted. I couldn't have asked for a better Christmas morning. And
thanks for having me, Christian.
Oh, thank you, Patty. And would you consider coming on again at some time? Because well, don't worry, no one on the chat's going to hear this, so it's not like I'm putting you on the spot in front of 3,000 people or anything like that. But if you'd like to come back on the show, I think we have so much more to talk about.
I think I would be happy to do that. Thank you for the invitation, and I look forward to talking to you again in the future.
You got it. Patty, just stick on for a second so I can say goodbye to you. And until next time, my friends, I wish you all a very wonderful and peaceful and healthy Christmas, and I will be seeing you all very soon. Until next time, well, let me just get over here. Until next time, stay curious, my friends. Merry Christmas.